Yo, Atlas speaking and welcome to a brand new series on the channel. What if I was reborn in Jujutsu Kaisen as Toji Zen'in's brother and obtained the Eight Gates formation? Synopsis: Transmigrated into the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, Zen'in Shinsuke was shackled by the heavens from the very moment he was born, fated to be a man without cursed energy. Fortunately, he wasn't the only unlucky one. His younger brother, Zen'in Toji, shared the same fate. Just as the two brothers resolved to rely on their monstrous physiques to freeload their way through life, a golden book suddenly appeared in Shinsuke's mind, none other than the Eight Inner Gates. Make sure to check out the author link below, and without further ado, let the tale begin. Chapter 1: Let Me Study Your Body. Jujutsu Kaisen World, United States. On a scorching beach, the air was filled with the vibrant energy of youth. Countless graceful figures played by the waves, laughter and splashes blending into the summer atmosphere. A man lay back lazily on a beach chair, upper body bare, sunglasses reflecting the sunlight as he savored the unique flavor of summer. Yeah, places like this are always the most convenient. Zen'in Shinsuke was scouting out his next target. Women without looks were out. Women without money were out. When it came to freeloading, he only chose the best. With his towering 190+ cm height, sculpted physique, and sharp, handsome face, his chances of success were nearly guaranteed every time. Excellent temperament, refined appearance, and that pricey bracelet on her wrist? No way she's short on cash. His eyes locked onto a tall blonde beauty who practically screamed wealthy. Shinsuke was about to get up and strike up a conversation, enough to cover his living expenses for the next few days, when someone suddenly stepped into his line of sight. A striking figure. Long hair flicked to the side. A confident, sultry pose. Pale fingers raised in a playful V sign next to a pair of bright, sparkling eyes. "What kind of women do you like?" the blonde girl asked with a teasing smile. She wore a snug black t-shirt up top, denim jeans hugging her frame below, exuding a breezy, confident aura. Shinsuke slowly removed his sunglasses, his expression caught between annoyance and resignation. "I have to ask, are you sure you didn't install a tracker on me?" He knew this woman all too well. They'd met years ago. Tsukumo Yuki. A special grade sorcerer. She never accepted missions from the higher-ups in the jujutsu world, preferring instead to roam the globe on her own whims. Thinking about it, they'd known each other for 4, maybe 5 years by now. "Do I look like the kind of woman who plants trackers on people?" Yuki didn't wait for an answer. She grabbed the iced juice sitting next to him, took a massive sip, and let out a satisfied sigh. "Ah, finally alive again. Damn, this heat is brutal." Shinsuke didn't even react. He was used to her antics by now, too used to them. "So tell me, how did you find me? I've only been in this city a couple of days." Don't you dare say it's just coincidence again. Part of the reason he never stayed long in one city was to shake her off. Every few months, he'd relocate to a different city, or even a different country. And yet, she always found him. Like some stubborn curse plastered to his back. Which is why he half-seriously suspected she had planted a tracker on him. Yuki batted her lashes, mischief glinting in her eyes. Coincidence? No, 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 this is fate. Don't you think we're destined to keep running into each other? She pressed her hands together, bowed deeply, and said with mock solemnity, "So please, let me study you properly again. I beg you. This time, I'll definitely uncover the secret of your body." Her eyes sparkled with obsession as they roamed over his scar-marked torso, as though she were gazing at some priceless treasure. "Huh?" Shinsuke sat up, interest flickering in his gaze. Of course he knew why Tsukumo Yuki was so obsessed with him. The reason was simple: heavenly restriction. It had been over 20 years since he arrived in the Jujutsu Kaisen world. When he first discovered he had been born into the prestigious Zen'in clan, one of the big 3 families of the jujutsu world, he had been quite pleased. After all, it meant he was from a noble lineage, and the elder brother of the infamous heavenly tyrant, Zen'in Toji. With an identity like that, he figured his future was secure. With the Zen'in clan's resources backing him, it shouldn't have been difficult to reach at least grade 1 sorcerer, maybe even higher. But fate always finds a way to ruin expectations. Perhaps as compensation for his transmigration, the heavens had placed a one-sided curse upon him at birth. His body carried not a single trace of cursed energy. Of course, he knew the power of heavenly restriction. Though robbed of cursed energy, in return he gained extraordinary physical ability, immense resistance to jujutsu, and heightened perception. He couldn't exorcise curses the way sorcerers did. But in terms of sheer combat ability, he far outclassed the majority of them. With the right curse tools in hand, even taking down weaker special-grade curses wasn't beyond him. So no, he wasn't too bothered by the lack of cursed energy itself. The problem was the Zen'in clan. They valued cursed techniques and cursed energy above all else. He knew they wouldn't welcome him. What he hadn't expected was just how viciously they would treat him. After experiencing firsthand the malice Toji had endured as a child, he finally understood why his younger brother had grown into a sorcerer-killer. As for why he was now drifting abroad like Yuki Tsukumo, never staying in one country too long, well, that was a more complicated story. Money. Shinsuke stretched out a hand toward Tsukumo Yuki, expression utterly casual. If you want to study my body, fine, but pay up. I'm short on cash right now. Yuki's smile instantly collapsed. She slumped like a balloon leaking air. I don't have any. Seriously? Is money all you ever think about? She puffed her cheeks, straightening her proud figure as if to emphasize herself. Don't I have at least some appeal to you? She couldn't understand why this man always talked about money. Did he not realize she was practically broke? Among all the special grade sorcerers in the world, she was likely the poorest one. Sure, she could make plenty of money if she wanted, her rank alone guaranteed that. But she couldn't stand the old geezers at the top of the jujutsu world, nor their warped ideals. So she refused to accept their missions, no matter how much they paid. That was why even her clothes were just the standard uniforms issued by Jujutsu High, modified into her own style to look personal. Aside from her finances though, what did she lack? She had the looks, the strength, the energy of youth, and that perfect mix of bold and alluring. Where else could he find a woman like her? No money? Then get lost. Don't interfere with me freeloading off rich girls. Shinsuke instantly lost interest. Without money, how was he supposed to live his life of eating soft rice? What, she expected to get his body for free? As if the world worked like that. Come on, we've known each other for years. Just this once, can't you waive the fee? Seeing her charm fail, Yuki quickly switched tactics. She clasped his hand with teary puppy dog eyes, shaking it pleadingly. No. His rejection was merciless. Shinsuke, the embodiment of Sigma male energy, was completely immune to her pouts and tricks. His eyes only held cold, unshakable conviction. Fine. Put it on my tab then. You'll get paid eventually. Yuki was desperate. If it weren't for the dream she was chasing, she'd never humiliate herself like this. This insufferable man, one day, she'd make him cough up every cent he'd ever bled from her. That, I can accept. But the price doubles. You! What? Even loans come with interest. You think I'd let a tab slide for free? His reasoning was delivered with absolute confidence, as if it were the most natural law of the universe. Yuki's face turned crimson with outrage. Never in her life had she met someone so shameless. Fine. I agree, she bit out through clenched teeth. So what? She'd just take on a few missions. She was a special grade sorcerer, there was no way money, of all things, could stop her. Good. Then follow me. Satisfied at last, Shinsuke broke into a smile. To Yuki, however, that smile was anything but charming. It was sly, devious, dripping with the smugness of a man who thought he'd won. Chapter 2, Heavenly Restriction and the Eight Gates. After extorting Yuki Tsukumo, Zen'in Shinsuke brought her to a well-furnished loft. The decor was elegant, the kind of place that screamed expensive. "Come in." Shinsuke pulled out a key and unlocked the door with practiced ease. "Wait, don't tell me this is your place?" Yuki stepped inside, her expression full of disbelief as her eyes swept across the spacious room. Where had this guy gotten the money for such a luxury apartment? Could it be swindled from someone? Suspicion flickered in her heart. Of course it's not mine. Do I look like the type who'd spend money on a house? Shinsuke shot her a sidelong glance. Why waste money buying property? With his skills, freeloading off the right woman was far more cost-efficient. Good. That's good. Relief washed over Yuki, her heart feeling just a little lighter. All right, let's get this over with. Back in the bedroom, Shinsuke stripped off his shirt without hesitation and flopped onto the bed, lying face down as if he'd gone through this routine countless times. Yuki's eyes couldn't help but linger on the explosive muscles sculpting his back. Her throat bobbed slightly as she swallowed, her face tinged with red. Even though she'd seen his body more than once before, every time brought a subtle wave of discomfort, an unfamiliar, distracting heat. Handsome, and built like that too, he really was born to live off women. Shaking her head to banish the thought, Yuki placed her palm gently against his back. A stream of pure cursed energy flowed into his body. Shinsuke's heightened perception allowed him to feel it distinctly, the cursed energy coursing through his muscles, probing and searching for the mystery behind his heavenly restriction. The truth was, Yuki's strained relationship with the Jujutsu higher-ups came from more than just her defiance. She fundamentally disagreed with their ideology. To her, exorcising curses was only a temporary measure. It solved symptoms, not the disease. In this world, every human carried cursed energy within them, though most never sensed it. Those who could perceive and control cursed energy became sorcerers. Their main duty was to exorcise curses, malevolent beings born from accumulated negative energy, and protect ordinary people. But not all sorcerers were protectors. Some abused their powers, committing crimes and acts of terror, threatening society itself. These outcasts were called curse users, enemies to both sorcerers and civilians alike. Yuki, however, believed that the true solution to curses was to eliminate cursed energy altogether. If the world had no cursed energy, curses could never manifest in the first place. And as far as known human history was concerned, only two people were born completely devoid of cursed energy. One was Zen'in Toji, of the Zen'in clan, infamous as the sorcerer killer. The other was the man lying before her now, Zen'in Shinsuke. Coincidentally, the two of them were blood brothers. Done with your research yet? My time's precious, you know. Zen'in Shinsuke's body tensed as veins bulged across his skin like writhing dragons, rejecting the cursed energy coursing through him. Phew! Exhaling softly, Yuki Tsukumo withdrew her pale hand, looking helpless. Seriously, why? Why is it that your body alone can exist without producing cursed energy? For once, Yuki's composure cracked. She had spent years, and a small fortune, only to end up empty-handed. She felt completely ripped off. I told you, give it up already. Stop wasting your time. You'd be better off killing a few curses and making some cash. Eating well and living comfortably matters more than this nonsense. After so many years of dealing with Yuki, Shinsuke knew exactly what she was after. No way. Let me keep researching. I can feel it, if I just have more time, I'll figure something out. Yuki's expression was dead serious. She had noticed a pattern. The longer her cursed energy stayed inside Shinsuke's body, the stronger the repulsion became. If she could maintain it longer, or pour in even more, maybe she'd uncover the true mechanism of heavenly restriction. That won't do. If there's no money involved, I'm out. Shinsuke waved her off flatly. This woman always tried to freeload, give her once and she'd keep coming back forever. Fine. I'll pay you. Triple. Veins popped on Yuki's forehead as she held up 3 fingers. One last time. If nothing comes of it, I'll really give up. She already sunk 4 or 5 years into this, wasting both time and money, with zero results. Swearing to herself, Yuki resolved this would be the final attempt. Instead of stubbornly fixating on heavenly restriction, maybe she should focus on other ways to fix humanity, like turning every person into a jujutsu sorcerer. Alright, but this really is the last time. After this, don't bother me again. Shinsuke reluctantly agreed. To him, lying around while someone else handed him money wasn't a bad deal at all. And in the end, Yuki would never figure anything out anyway. Easy money without lifting a finger. Besides Yuki Tsukumo, who else could possibly offer that? Even living off women usually required some effort. To Yuki, though, it was like paying for a product and never getting to use it, a deeply frustrating experience every single time. This time I'll push my cursed energy harder. If you can't take it, say so. Taking a deep breath, Yuki's gaze hardened. Don't disappoint me. Not this time. The next instant, her cool hand pressed against Shinsuke's back again. A torrent of cursed energy surged violently into his body, instantly triggering rejection. His veins bulged grotesquely. Shinsuke's expression twisted as, deep in his mind, the strange, almost technological-looking scripture began to tremble violently. Boom! A wave of searing heat burst from his body, forcibly ejecting all the cursed energy inside. The sheer force knocked Yuki off balance, sending her stumbling back several steps before she regained her footing. What the hell? Is that also heavenly restriction? Her eyes sharpened. How could it be so overwhelming? Ha! Suppressing the raging energy within, Shinsuke's reddened skin slowly returned to normal. My body and cursed energy were never meant to coexist. This kind of reaction isn't surprising. Still, even he hadn't expected this. Yuki had injected cursed energy into him plenty of times. By now, his body should have been used to it. But it seemed the golden scripture in his mind wasn't so tolerant. Lowering his consciousness, Shinsuke glimpsed the book resting quietly in his inner world. 8 Gates Release Formation. That's right, the pinnacle of taijutsu. It had appeared suddenly on his 18th birthday. Maybe because in his past life, he'd collapsed while watching an AMV of Might Guy's battles. Either way, it became his golden finger in this world. When it first appeared, he had been ecstatic. A late cheat was still a cheat. And what could be more perfect than heavenly restriction paired with the 8 gates? With his body already pushed to its natural limit by heavenly restriction, he thought he'd be able to open the gates instantly and crush the entire jujutsu world. But then reality hit him. He had no chakra. He couldn't even open a single tenketsu, let alone the 8 gates. Fortunately, the system wasn't completely heartless. The 8 gates method had been slightly revised. Instead of relying on chakra, it now drew on the body's natural vitality, blood and chi. By refining the flesh to the extreme, one could awaken a physical energy that flowed like blood essence. Using that to open the gates achieved the same effect as chakra. In other words, his 8 gates were now pure taijutsu, designed to push the human body's power to the absolute limit. The only catch? Refining that blood energy was insanely difficult. He opened the scripture in his mind. Intelligent characters floated into view. Gate of opening, 100%. Gate of healing, 100%. Gate of life, 100%. Gate of pain, 11%. Gate of death, 0%. So far, he could only fully open the first 3 gates. The boosts weren't outrageous, but they sharpened every aspect of his physical state, speed, aura, momentum. With heavenly restriction already granting him monstrous strength, he estimated he'd need at least the first 5 gates, up to the gate of limit, to make a real leap in power. Soon. As long as he slowed down a bit on freeloading and pushed his training harder, it wouldn't be long before the world learned what true taijutsu was. After all, the 8 gates power scaled directly with the user's body. Guy's 5th gate and Lee's 5th gate were not the same thing. And with heavenly restriction fused with the 8 gates, the result would be nothing short of terrifying. Chapter 3, the good-for-nothing who can't see curses. Something's off. Very off. Yuki Tsukumo circled Zen'in Shinsuke like a hawk, occasionally poking or squeezing his arm as if a closer look might reveal the truth. Sure, his heavenly restriction clearly rejected cursed energy, but this reaction? This was on another level. She was a special grade sorcerer, someone who could change the fate of entire nations. And yet she'd been blown back like a rookie. Careless or not, that only proved how terrifying this power was. All right, enough. You should just give up already. Pulling his shirt back on, Shinsuke didn't bother explaining further. Remember to wire the money to my account. You've got the number. Yuki puffed her cheeks in frustration. I know. But do you have to be so greedy all the time? Hey, don't get it twisted. I'm not obsessed with money. I just enjoy the process of earning it. And besides, I only make honest money, hard-earned money. How's that greedy? Shinsuke shot back with a quick denial. Truth was, he only worried about money when he was flat broke, like right now. Thanks to some small recreational gambling a while back, he didn't even have enough left for a plane ticket home. Most of the time, though, he preferred to laze around, drift from country to country, or put in just enough effort to refine his blood energy. You really are impossible. Yuki rubbed her forehead, exasperated. Older than her, yet somehow more childish, always spouting nonsense. So, what's your plan now? Going to keep freeloading? She folded her arms, giving him a sharp look. That was the idea, yeah. But if you're willing to spot me some cash right now, I could just go home instead. His original plan was to find a sugar mommy, make a quick profit, and then head back to Japan. But since Yuki had caught him first, well, why not take the direct route? Really? And what brought on this sudden urge to go home? Yuki's eyes narrowed with suspicion. She knew full well he'd been away for 7, 8 years now. She figured he'd never set foot back there again. Shinsuke's lips curved into a faint smile, his gaze softening ever so slightly. No matter what, I still have an Ototo waiting for me there. Of course, that wasn't all. By now, his little brother probably had 2 kids of his own. If Shinsuke didn't return soon, he might get roped into babysitting duties. And that was absolutely out of the question. He had zero interest in being anyone's nanny. So your eyes aren't completely blinded by money after all. Fine. I'll cover your ticket back home. But... She glanced around the apartment. If you're heading back, then this place. Yuki Tsukumo blinked, tilting her head and shooting Shinsuke a meaningful look. She still hadn't found a place to stay, after all. Shinsuke's mouth twitched. Knew it. This woman never misses a chance to freeload off me. He grabbed the keys off the table and tossed them at her. Here. Take it. But let's be clear, this place isn't mine. If the real owner comes back, that's on you. The apartment actually belonged to some foreign woman who'd gone on a long business trip. Shinsuke had just been squatting in the meantime. Yuki flashed him an okay sign. She didn't care, she'd only crash here for a few days before heading off to her next destination anyway. No way the owner would come back during that exact window, right? Once he decided to return home, Shinsuke kept his dinner simple. Naturally, Yuki freeloaded another meal off him before the day was done. The next morning, Shinsuke, rarely, woke up early to catch his flight. You're really heading back? Travel safe. Yuki, still half asleep in silk pajamas, leaned lazily against the doorway as she saw him off. Despite all the times he'd swindled her, the two were undeniably close friends. Shinsuke glanced her up and down, muttering offhandedly, "Good figure." And with that casual remark, he pushed the door open and left. Yuki's drowsiness vanished instantly. Straightening her back without thinking, she muttered under her breath, "At least his eyes aren't blind, shame his brain is." A hopelessly dense man. Her signals couldn't be more obvious, yet he still didn't get it. Wouldn't freeloading off me be just as sweet? If Shinsuke had heard her thoughts, his answer would have been immediate. Sorry, but I only freeload off rich, beautiful, elegant women. All 3 conditions required. No exceptions. And while Yuki checked 2 of those boxes, she was just too poor. The Zen'in estate. An elderly man sat cross-legged in a wide, empty chamber, a massive Zen character painted on the wall behind him. Outside, younger members of the clan were being tested, evaluated for their cursed energy and innate techniques. Exorcise it, one examiner ordered, holding up a low-grade curse in front of a little girl. And no, I can't. I'm scared. The girl recoiled, hiding behind her mother's legs, clinging tightly, eyes wide with fear. She wanted to be brave, but her body refused to obey. In the end, she buried her face in her mother's thigh, trembling. The adults watching frowned coldly. Still, at least she could see curses, that alone set her above true failures. Born into the Zen'in bloodline, as long as one possessed cursed energy, the odds of awakening a technique were high. The question was only how strong or weak it would be. Don't be afraid, my mommy's right here. The woman knelt and soothed her younger daughter, Zen'in Mai. That's enough for today, the tester said, dismissing the curse. Wait! Maki hasn't been tested yet. The woman hurriedly called out, desperate to secure a chance for her elder daughter. Maki? Pfft, ha ha ha. The surrounding men burst out laughing. A brat so worthless she can't even see curses thinks she'll awaken a technique? Don't waste our time. Honestly, sister-in-law, just kick her out of the clan already. Without cursed energy, she's dead weight anyway. The mother's face twisted with helplessness. In a family that worshipped cursed techniques above all else, failing to show talent meant a lifetime of scorn. And without cursed energy, it was practically a crime against heaven. But her daughter was just a child. Maki stood at her mother's side, head bowed, small fists clenched tight inside her sleeves, hair shadowing her eyes. No one knew what she was thinking. Oh? So no cursed energy makes someone trash, huh? A tall figure suddenly appeared beside the man who'd mocked Maki, one hand dropping heavily on his shoulder. Cold, lifeless eyes bore down on him. Why you're back? The man stammered, paralyzed by the familiar face he could never forget, by those dead fish eyes that carried crushing pressure. Zen'in Shinsuke? Gasps rippled through the room. Instantly, the surrounding clansmen braced themselves, slipping into combat stances. The sight of him brought back memories of the Zen'in clan's tragedy from 8 years ago. Chapter 4, Zen'in Maki's Doubts. Surprised to see me? Zen'in Shinsuke glanced at the wary faces surrounding him, a faintly mocking smile tugging at his lips. Why the long faces? I'm not a monster. Without sparing them another look, he withdrew the hand from the man's shoulder and casually walked toward the inner rooms, not even bothering to acknowledge the clan members. A bunch of self-important jujutsu sorcerers, he didn't even find them worth a second glance. Ha! As his figure disappeared into the hall, the crowd exchanged uneasy glances. Only the man he touched earlier let out a shaky breath, his back soaked through with sweat. It wasn't cowardice, Shinsuke's pressure was simply overwhelming. Mom, who was that? Little Zen'in Maki tugged at her mother's hand, looking curiously at the fading silhouette. He should be your cousin, her mother answered softly, still unsettled herself. She never expected him to return. A boy born without cursed energy, scorned and despised since childhood, yet he had clawed his way up with nothing but raw strength, until the entire Zen'in clan feared his very presence. Cousin? Whispers rippled among the nearby clansmen. That guy with no cursed energy, why is he back? Wasn't he exiled from the clan? Better pray we don't see a repeat of what happened 8 years ago. He's just a curseless failure. As if he could challenge the entire Zen'in clan. You weren't there back then. If you had been, you wouldn't speak so lightly. Enough. Stop talking nonsense. Disperse. An elder stepped in quickly, waving off the hushed arguments. Family shame was not meant to be aired in public. Maki frowned, whispering under her breath. He doesn't have cursed energy either, so why is everyone so afraid of him? Her small head struggled with the question, unable to make sense of it. Meanwhile, Shinsuke entered the inner chamber, where an old man sat cross-legged before a wall marked with the large calligraphy for Zen. Well, look at that, the old man's still alive? The current clan head, Zen'in Nobito, a special grade 1 sorcerer, calmly poured a cup of tea and slid it forward. He showed no surprise at Shinsuke's sudden return, nor the fear others had displayed. It's been 8 years. This time, you're not planning on leading again, are you? Nobito asked in a conversational tone, as though speaking to an old acquaintance. To him, no matter how strong Shinsuke was, he was still a junior. Who knows? Shinsuke took a sip of tea, then grimaced and stuck out his tongue. Bitter as hell. What about Toji? He left the clan after you did, Nobito replied evenly. He married into another family. Goes by Fushiguro Toji now. Though Toji had severed ties with the Zen'in clan, his relationship with Nobito remained tolerable. They still met from time to time. In fact, not long ago, he sold his son to the clan. I see, that sounds like him. Shinsuke's face betrayed no surprise. He knew Toji too well. Their childhood in the clan had forged an unshakable familiarity. You agreed to this? Nobito arched a brow at Shinsuke's calmness. Toji made that choice himself. And besides, what would you expect? For two men without cursed energy to raise a boy with inherited techniques? Shinsuke had no intention of claiming Fushiguro Megumi for himself. The boy carried the Zenin's treasured 10 Shadows technique. With the clan's resources, his potential could rival even Gojo Satoru one day. Why raise the boy on scraps when the Zen'in clan could lavish him with resources? Still, the relationship between father and son clearly needed mending. Perhaps that's for the best, Nobito mused. The Gojo clan alone has already disrupted the balance of the Jujutsu world. If Toji's son can awaken the Zenin's inherited technique, he may well be our answer. He had already negotiated with Toji. If Megumi awakened the clan's secret technique, Nobito would make sure Toji was handsomely compensated. For now, the future remained uncertain. Everything here, including the entire Zen'in clan, was under his eyes. Gojo Satoru, huh? Zen'in Shinsuke knew that name all too well. So, anything big happening in the Jujutsu world lately? Something big. Nobito mused. If I had to say, it would be Tengen's once in 500 years assimilation. It should be happening in the next few days. As head of one of the 3 great families, he was naturally well informed about such matters. I see. Looks like I came back at the perfect time. For the first time, Shinsuke felt a bit of gratitude towards Tsukumo Yuki. Had he been late, he might have lost his dear Ototo forever. Old man, don't go dying on me. If you're gone, the Zen'in clan's finished. Shinsuke stood, scratching his ear as he turned to leave. To him, Nobito was the only one in this rotten family worth a shred of respect. Watching him go, Nobito let out a faint sigh. Those 2 brothers, just thinking about them gave him a headache. If it weren't him in the seat of clan head, the Zen'in would have collapsed long ago. At the gates of the Zen'in estate, Shinsuke came across Zen'in Maki. The small girl stood firm, her timid sister Mai clinging to her hand. Sis, he's scary. Let's just run. Mai's voice trembled as she tugged desperately at her sister's sleeve, eyes wide with fear. To her, this man was more terrifying than any curse. But Maki kept her gaze locked on Shinsuke. She ignored Mai's plea, only tightening her grip on her sister's hand. Hey! Why are they afraid of you? Her voice rang out as Shinsuke passed. She tilted her head up, meeting his eyes, not with fear, but with burning curiosity. Shinsuke paused mid-step. Slowly, he looked down at her, a faint grin tugging at his lips. Good eyes, brat. Then he brushed past the sisters without another word. Wait! You didn't answer me. Maki spun around, fists clenched, shouting at his back. Because they're afraid of dying. The answer came without him turning his head. By the time the words sank in, his figure had already vanished. Afraid of dying? Maki whispered, dazed. Come on, sis. Let's just go back. You have to hold my hand tight, don't let go, okay? Yeah. Maki finally pulled Mai along, leaving the gates behind. Meanwhile, Shinsuke had already set off on his search for Toji. Still, he couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy for Maki. He could sense it, her body carried only a trace of cursed energy, so faint it was practically worthless. That meant she was trapped between two worlds, too weak to become a sorcerer, yet unable to achieve the monstrous physique he and Toji had attained through heavenly restriction. Her path was sealed. She was destined to face mockery and contempt, without the strength to fight back. Chapter 5: The Late Arrival of Zen'in Shinsuke, The Death of Gojo Satoru. Inside a quiet coffee shop, Zen'in Shinsuke sat down across from a man who claimed to know Zen'in Toji's whereabouts. At first glance, Kongshu froze. Toji? Wait, no. You're not him. The man before him bore an uncanny resemblance to Toji, 7, maybe 8 parts alike, which had caught Kongshu off guard. But having dealt with Toji frequently, he quickly realized this wasn't the same person. Hello, the stranger said politely with a faint smile. I'm Toji's elder brother, Zen'in Shinsuke. Could you tell me where he is now? Brother? Toji has a brother? Funny, he never mentioned that. Kongshu didn't doubt him though. With a face like that in front of him, it was hard not to believe. Well, if you want to find Toji, you might just have to wait. Today's the final day of his mission. If things go well, he should come by to collect the rest of his payment. Even if he fails, he'll give me an explanation. Kongshu spoke casually, then raised his cup. If you're not in a hurry, we could share a DRI, huh? Before he could finish, the man was gone. At some point, Shinsuke had vanished without a sound. Toji's brother, eh? Interesting. Kongshu drained the last sip of his coffee and stood. He had a sinking feeling the assassin he had worked with for years might fail this time. But it didn't matter to him. He was only the middleman. Meanwhile, inside the barrier of Jujutsu High, the two prodigies, Gojo Satoru and Geto Suguru, finally succeeded in escorting the star plasma vessel, Riko Amanai, to safety. Everyone exhaled in relief. Inside the barrier, no assassin could enter without being detected. Finally. I'm exhausted, Gojo muttered, stretching with a look of irritation mixed with weariness. Next time, I'm not babysitting again. He hadn't slept in 3 days. Fatigue weighed on him, but the heaviness in his gaze came from something else, the thought that Amanai, who had shared precious days with them, would soon be absorbed by Master Tenjin. Merging, they called it. But in truth, it was no different from death. These past few days were the happiest of my life. Thank you. Amanai's eyes shone with gratitude, not complaint. She had always believed she liked solitude, but now she realized it was because she had never known true companionship. I don't want thanks from a kid. Gojo's words carried mock disdain, yet the slight upward curl of his lips betrayed his pride. Geto just smiled with narrowed eyes, saying nothing. Beside them, Kurwa stood silently, her face tight with reluctance. After all this time caring for Amanai, was this really their farewell? SHHHK. The moment of respite shattered. A flash of steel pierced through the air, a long blade drove clean through Gojo's body, bursting out his chest. Blood cascaded down the weapon, soaking his clothes. Everyone froze, eyes wide with horror. Gojo! Geto roared, cursed energy surging violently. With a snap, a rift opened in the air, and a grotesque cursed spirit crawled through with a guttural snarl. But Gojo stood as if unfazed, turning to study the man who had impaled him. Have we met before? He asked casually. The man pulled his blade free, smiling faintly. No need to remember me. I'm not great at keeping men's names in mind either. Dodge the vitals, huh? Impressive. As expected of the Gojo clan's once-in-a-century prodigy. In the instant he spoke, the massive curse lunged forward, maw gaping like an abyss, and swallowed him whole. Geto, Gojo said calmly, eyes fixed ahead. Take Ammonite to Tenjin. I'll handle this one. Geto hesitated for a moment, then acted, grabbing Riko Ammonite and rushing toward Tengen's sanctum. Gojo Satoru stayed behind, facing off against the infamous sorcerer-killer, Fushiguro Toji. SHHHK, SHHHK, SHHHK. The moment Geto departed, a massive cursed spirit was impaled by a wide, blood-stained blade. Toji emerged, hefting his cleaver-like sword, his body drenched in blood, a grotesque curse coiling faintly around him. He stared at the baffled Gojo, then, almost arrogantly, laid out his entire scheme. The bounty? His doing. The mission deadline? Also his. His aim was simple, weaken the targets, then trick Gojo into lowering his guard when the mission time expired and his infinity was deactivated. And Toji, born without cursed energy, could slip in and out of Jujutsu High undetected by its barrier. All he had to do was lie in wait, biding his time until Gojo finally relaxed, then strike with a lethal blow. As for Geto Suguru, Toji dismissed him as irrelevant. So that's how it is. Gojo grinned, spreading his arms. A powerful, unnatural pulling force began to gather in his palms. My turn now, isn't it? Out of respect for his opponent, Gojo unleashed a devastating attack. At his command, cursed technique lapse, blue warp space itself, a focal point in front of him collapsed into a void, radiating the signature blue glow of the technique. Instantly, everything in the vicinity, including chunks of rubble and shattered structures, was violently drawn inward as reality tried to fill the absolute emptiness at the heart of the effect. Windows shattered and buildings buckled as the world collapsed toward the singularity, crushing and tearing everything in its path. Gojo intended to leave nowhere for his enemy to hide. As the dust settled, he focused, stretching his senses. Even if Toji had no cursed energy, he carried a weak curse. Gojo could use that trace to track him down. BZZZT, BZZZT. But before he could lock on, dozens of tiny fly-like curses appeared around him. The swarm clouded his perception completely. TCH, annoying pests. He was about to unleash blue again to clear them out, when a sudden realization struck. His expression shifted. No, damn it! His target isn't me. Gojo whirled around. Heh, finally using your infinity defensively? Toji's figure materialized behind him, short, reversed blade dagger in hand. The muscles on his arm bulged, veins straining as he thrust forward. Ryup! The blade pulsed with strange cursed energy, tearing through Gojo's infinity. The edge drove into the side of his neck. With ruthless precision, Toji slashed, splitting half of Gojo's torso open. SHHHK, SHHHK, SHHHK. His arm blurred, stabbing Gojo's body over and over in a merciless storm of strikes. The final blow came down hard on Gojo's skull. Crack! Gojo's eyes went lifeless. His body collapsed into a spreading pool of blood, breath fading into silence. Toji, face expressionless, calmly sheathed his blade and strode deeper into Jujutsu High. He knew Gojo's perception was razor-sharp, so sharp that Toji hadn't been sure he could kill him head-on. That was why he had crafted his layered plan to systematically wear him down. And in the end, the victor was him. Minutes later, Zen'in Shinsuke arrived belatedly. His eyes fell on Gojo's bloody, fallen form, and his head immediately throbbed. You've got to be kidding me. Did you really have to go this far, this fast? Let's just hope I'm not too late. His legs coiled with strength, launching him like a shadow deeper into the school grounds. Already, he could sense something stirring inside Gojo's broken body, a shift, an awakening. Simply put, Gojo was stepping onto the path of a hacked existence. This kind of guy? He wouldn't die, not until the very endgame. Shinsuke sighed inwardly. If it came to it, he'd have to intervene elsewhere. And if worst came to worst, he was ready to grab Okatsu and run. Because he doubted his current strength could withstand the storm about to be unleashed, the rise of the man destined to become the strongest jujutsu sorcerer alive. Chapter 6, Breaking the Sound Barrier, Catching Bullets with Bare Hands. On the other side, Geto Suguru had already escorted Amani Riko to the tombs of the Star Corridor. After a final farewell with Kurwa, he led Riko through the tunnels into the main hall, layer upon layer of structures, the very foundation of all barriers. He halted at the stone archway. This was as far as he could take her. Once you go down the stairs, through the main gate, and walk straight to the base of the great tree, you'll find a barrier unlike the one protecting Jujutsu High. Only those invited can pass through. There, Master Tenjin will guard you until the assimilation is complete. His tone was heavy, solemn. Riko listened in silence, her expression calm but dimmed. She had long accepted her fate, showing little emotion. But then Geto said something that made her eyes flare with sudden light. Or, you could choose to turn back. Go home. With Miss Kurwa. He looked at her evenly, face steady, voice resolute. Long before meeting her, he and Gojo had decided, if Riko did not want to assimilate, they would protect her choice. No matter the cost. Even if it meant fighting Tenjin. Even if it meant defying the entire world. When Yaga had given them this mission, he had made it clear, assimilation was just another word for erasure. And that meant guilt, for both of them. Riko froze, staring in disbelief. What did you just say? It's all right. Whatever happens, Gojo and I will guarantee your future. Geto repeated, earnest. No matter what, there would always be a way forward. After all, he and Gojo were the strongest. Neither of them knew that at that very moment, Gojo Satoru lay bleeding on the ground, yet also standing on the brink of awakening into the true strongest. Riko's body trembled. This boy she had only known for 2 days, willing to oppose the world for her, left her speechless. From birth, she had been called the Star Plasma Vessel. Survival itself had felt like a duty. She couldn't even remember her parents' deaths clearly anymore, loneliness and grief had numbed her long ago. Sometimes, she had even thought assimilation wasn't so terrible. Separation was inevitable. Time dulled pain. Loneliness always faded. But now! Tchh, huh. Tears and snot streamed down without restraint as Riko broke into sobs. She was still just a teenage girl. How could she not cling to the world? Through her tears, she cried out, remembering the last 2 days. I still want to stay. I still want to be with everyone longer. Phew! Geto exhaled, relieved. A smile touched his lips. He stretched out his hand, answering her longing for life. Riko, let's go back. Bang! A single gunshot shattered the fragile hope. From the high platform above, a bullet whistled through the air, aimed straight at Riko's head. The round sliced past her hair, close enough to kill. Then a shadow streaked out of the tunnel depths, the air cracking into thunderous sonic booms. In that instant, he broke the sound barrier. Snap! Veins bulged across his arm, callous fingers snapping shut around the bullet just inches from Riko's skull. The force of his arrival whipped up a violent wind, knocking Riko back onto the ground with a startled cry. Ah! Riko Amani hadn't even figured out what had happened. All she heard was a sharp snap, and the next thing she knew, she had landed hard on the ground. Beside her, Geto Suguru's expression froze. His eyes locked on the man who had suddenly appeared, a chill running down his spine. Every nerve in his body screamed danger as he slipped instantly into battle readiness. In a flash, he moved to Riko's side, pulling her up and shielding her behind him. You all right? I'm fine. Riko shook her head quickly. Aside from her sore backside, she wasn't hurt. Phew, talk about timing. A split second later, and a young girl in her prime would have died before my eyes. The newcomer opened his palm. Resting there was a deformed, flattened bullet. He exhaled deeply, the faint flush on his skin gradually fading back to normal. From the high platform above, Fushiguro Toji's figure appeared. His gaze narrowed, hardening as he stared at the man who had intruded so suddenly. For a moment, he was even stunned. The newcomer, Zen'in Shinsuke, lifted his eyes toward him, smiling gently. "Toji, long time no see. Missed your big brother? TCH, bastard. If you leave, then don't bother coming back." Toji didn't show joy at the reunion. Instead, anger flared. His expression darkened as he turned away, abandoning the mission without hesitation. Even now, resentment simmered in his chest toward this brother who had once left without a word. Why had he gone off alone? Why had he left him behind? Shinsuke scratched his head with a wry smile. Looks like his little brother had grown up, not as easy to coax as when he was a kid. Some mending would be needed. Turning toward Geto, who was still visibly on guard, Shinsuke offered an apologetic smile. "Sorry about that. My younger brother seems to have caused you trouble. As an apology, let me share a little secret." His tone softened, almost conspiratorial, as he leaned closer. "Truth is, even if Tenjin doesn't merge with the star plasma vessel, she'll be fine." With that, he turned and strode off in the direction Toji had gone, calling back casually over his shoulder. "Don't tell anyone I said that." Geto watched the broad-shouldered figure vanish into the distance, feeling a crushing weight lift from the air. What the hell was that guy? Forget everything else, just his speed had already exceeded Geto's imagination. So, what do we do now?" Riko's voice trembled. Her heart was still pounding, just moments ago she had stood at death's door. If not for that stranger's sudden appearance, she would already be gone. "First, we leave." Geto's brows furrowed slightly, senses still razor-sharp, alert for any new threat. Right now, all he wanted was to regroup with Gojo Satoru. Please, let nothing have happened to him. As for Shinsuke's words about Master Tenjin, he had no way of knowing whether they were truth or lies. That would have to be sorted out later. Outside Jujutsu High's barrier, Zen'in Shinsuke caught up with Toji. Seeing the irritation plastered on his little brother's face, he walked up and clamped a large hand firmly onto his shoulder. "What's with that look? See your big brother and already itching to feel some brotherly love?" Shinsuke narrowed his eyes, raising a fist in mock threat. When little brothers misbehaved, wasn't it an older brother's right to straighten them out? At nearly 190 centimeters, with a body built like a fortress, Shinsuke's sheer presence made even Toji seem small. Smack! Toji slapped his brother's hand away, his face blank, voice low and cold. "You really think you can beat me as you are now?" He was no longer the same Toji as back then. Just because Shinsuke was his brother didn't mean he had the strength to discipline him anymore. Chapter 7, Taking Playful Cloud to the Head? Yo! A few years apart and now your wings are stiff, huh? Zen'in Shinsuke looked at his younger brother with a mix of surprise and mockery. This brat had played at being a sorcerer-killer for a few years and already forgotten his own surname? Didn't he realize all of this was just hand-me-down scraps from Shinsuke's era? Come on then, let me see just how much you've grown. Shinsuke stepped back, curling a finger in provocation. If soft words wouldn't do, then he'd resort to hard fists. He really wanted to see what gave this foolish brother the guts to mouth off at him. Heh, don't blame me for not giving you face. Toji's resentment surged the moment he saw the brother who had abandoned him for years. Some conflicts between men couldn't be settled except with a fight. Today, he had to know, could the brother who once stood above him still do the same now? Toji's gaze turned razor-sharp. He reached into the mouth of the cursed spirit coiled around his body and pulled out a crimson 3-section staff. The 5 billion yen special-grade curse tool, Playful Cloud. Gripping the weapon with both hands, Toji bent his knees and grinned viciously. Don't lose too badly, old man. Boom! In the next instant, Toji blurred into motion, the staff whistling through the air as it swung toward Shinsuke in a blur of crimson. Shinsuke's body tensed, heat surging through his frame as muscles bulged and veins stood out. Clack! He thrust out one hand and caught Playful Cloud mid-swing. A monstrous force rippled through his arm, leaving his muscles numb. Playful Cloud, the only special-grade curse tool without any technique, possessed a raw, tyrannical power. The stronger the wielder, the more destructive its potential. It was a weapon made purely for the strong. In Toji's hands, it was enough to slay most special-grade curses outright. And yet, though his arm tingled from the impact, Shinsuke's expression remained unchanged. With a sudden surge of power, he reversed the momentum. The overwhelming force traveled back through the staff into Toji's hands, and in the blink of an eye Shinsuke had wrenched Playful Cloud away. "This thing's mine now," he said with a teasing smile. Weapons steeped in violence like this? He loved them. TCH. Toji clicked his tongue in annoyance. Without missing a beat, he reached into the cursed spirit's maw again and drew out a wide-bladed longsword. The special-grade cursed tool, Split Soul Katana. It ignored both physical and cursed energy defenses, cutting directly into the soul. Any wound it inflicted was impossible to heal. Shinsuke swallowed as he eyed the blade. All these treasures, and they all ended up in Toji's hands. Toji tightened his grip on the sword and blurred forward again. Shinsuke swung Playful Cloud with one arm, wielding it flawlessly. 3-section staff against longsword? Too easy. Clang! Clang! Each exchange was deflected with casual grace, as though Shinsuke were strolling in a garden. Toji, your attack patterns are still this predictable, huh? He suddenly slammed the staff down toward Toji. Toji's eyes narrowed, raising the blade to block. Bang! But in his anger, he forgot Playful Cloud's structure. He blocked the second strike, but the third section followed through, snapping across his skull. The brutal impact left his head ringing. HSSHH. Blood streamed down Toji's forehead. Even Shinsuke winced at the sight. Taking a blow from a special-grade curse tool with his bare head, his brother really was a lunatic. Toji staggered, vision blurring. Thud! A moment later, he collapsed, knocked unconscious. Seriously? Shinsuke sighed, helpless, and moved to support his fallen brother. He knew Toji all too well. Outwardly calm, meticulous, and cautious, but in certain moments, he lost his head and overlooked the obvious. Like when his desperation to defeat Shinsuke made him reckless. Or when facing Satoru Gojo, his pride drove him into yet another trap. Guess he really does take after me a little. Shinsuke chuckled and shook his head. He'd been just as hot-blooded once. Who was he to lecture? He lifted Toji up, but before they could take more than a few steps, an unwelcome figure blocked their path. Yo, Sasuga NE. What's this? Two of you now? Satoru Gojo, bloody but unbroken, stood before them. Shinsuke's lips twitched. Couldn't this guy have waited until they were gone? Not that it would have mattered, Gojo could have found them anyway. You've got the wrong guy, Shinsuke said smoothly, pretending not to know him. But beside him, Toji was already stirring, consciousness clawing its way back thanks to the monstrous vitality granted by heavenly restriction. The heavenly restriction granted Toji a body of monstrous strength and rapid recovery. Even after taking a direct hit from Playful Cloud to the head, he was already shaking it off within moments. You? Impossible. Toji shoved Zen'in Shinsuke aside, eyes wide in disbelief. How could someone who had died be standing before him again? Genuine article. And feeling better than ever. Gojo Satoru brushed his hair back, revealing a faintly healed scar on his forehead. Reverse curse technique? Ding ding, correct. A crazed smile spread across Gojo's face as he raised his arms and tilted his head skyward. In the instant his throat had been pierced, he had abandoned all defenses, focusing everything on grasping the reverse curse technique. Cursed energy was inherently negative, no matter how vast, it could never regenerate flesh. But through the principle of negative times negative equals positive, one could invert that energy into something constructive. Life from death itself. And in that razor-thin moment between existence and oblivion, Gojo had broken through, touching the true core of Jujutsu. Suspended in midair, bathed in the glow of the setting sun, Gojo narrated his revelation with almost religious fervor. Toji, however, had no patience for his rambling. Shaking off the last of his dizziness, he pulled the inverted spear of heaven from his Shikigami's mouth and blurred into motion, thrusting straight for Gojo's heart. But Gojo sidestepped effortlessly, still basking in his euphoric state. A follow-up strike, a vicious arcing slash, was dodged just as easily. Gojo reclined lazily in the air, eyes glazed, radiating the stillness of a saint. Nothing in this world could stir his emotions anymore. Everything felt boundless, weightless, perfectly clear. At that moment, he felt it deep in his bones. Above heaven, under heaven, there is only me. Reverse curse technique, red. Dangling upside down, Gojo formed a blade-like hand sign. A dense orb of crimson energy condensed before erupting forward, smashing into the inverted spear with overwhelming force. The blast carried at least twice the might of blue, and the impact hurled Toji deep into a heap of shattered stone. Unfazed, Toji clawed his way back out of the rubble. From his Shikigami's mouth, a chain snaked out and fastened to the spear's hilt. With a guttural laugh, he swung it high, the weapon spinning above him like a storm. Excitement burned in his eyes. For the first time, his resentment toward his elder brother faded, consumed instead by raw battle lust. Because he knew, this man standing before him might very well be the strongest sorcerer alive. And Toji had only one thought now: defeat him. To prove to every smug bastard who mocked the Zen'in brothers that the so-called strongest sorcerer could be slain by a man without a shred of cursed energy. He would make them choke on their scorn. The infinite void suppression meant nothing to him. Blue's gravitational pull? He could block with cursed tools, or simply dodge. Red's devastating repulsion? The inverted spear cut straight through it. Everything was within his grasp. But before the clash could ignite again, Zen'in Shinsuke stepped between them. That's far enough. He, of all people, knew exactly what Gojo was capable of. There was no reason to let Toji throw himself into this kind of suicide match. And this fight had no reason to continue. Chapter 8, The Reason for Leaving Without Saying Goodbye. Step aside. You should know what this fight means. Toji's brows furrowed as he glared at Shinsuke, voice ringing with sharp intent. So what if I do? Shinsuke turned, his eyes calm and steady. For dignity? For vengeance? For making the clan regret? Of course, he understood what Toji was thinking. But what difference would it make, even if he defeated Gojo Satoru? If the point was to make the Zen'in clan regret their cruelty, then Shinsuke's actions back then had already ensured they'd regret it for a lifetime. Staring into his brother's tranquil expression, Toji froze. The inverted spear of heaven, spinning in his grip, slowed and came to a halt. In that instant, his battle spirit, the fire that had just been rekindled, snuffed out completely. Because the moment he sought validation by defeating Gojo, he had already lost. Without realizing it, he was trying to reclaim the dignity he had cast aside long ago. TCH, nosy bastard. With a flick of his hand, Toji put away the weapon and stalked off. He understood why Shinsuke stopped him, but it still left a bitter taste. Just 1 year older, yet he always carried himself like some untouchable elder. Watching him leave, Shinsuke exhaled quietly in relief. Overturning the Jujutsu world wasn't something you proved by knocking down a single Gojo Satoru. Oi, just walking away like that? Don't you think that's a bit rude? A voice rang out from above. Floating in the air, Gojo Satoru blocked their path, his face smeared with blood, his grin touched with mania. Shinsuke's expression twitched. He'd nearly forgotten about this troublesome one. Gojo Satoru, was it? There's no bad blood between us. Amani Riko's alive. What now? If we don't fight, are you inviting us to dinner? His words struck like a needle. Their only real conflict had stemmed from Amini Riko. Since she was unharmed, what reason did they have to battle? Not everything had to be a death match like sorcerer versus curse. Gojo thought about it, then frowned. But wait. Didn't he just try to kill me? Isn't that a grudge? So what, was he not allowed to take revenge? Shinsuke suddenly chuckled. And yet you didn't die, did you? More than that, you awakened the reverse cursed technique. Don't tell me that's all you gained. He waved a hand as if brushing off dust. Remember this favor, Gojo. One day, you'll owe us. And with that, he turned and walked away, leaving Gojo blinking, dumbfounded. What the hell was that supposed to mean? Gojo raised his hand, ready to form a stance, but no technique came. He just stood there, watching as the two brothers vanished from sight. Damn it. So in the end, am I the one who's supposed to thank them? His mind finally cleared, the godlike haze lifting. Slowly, he descended back to the ground, rubbing his chin with suspicion. Seriously though, who the hell are those two? No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't place them. And yet, deep down, the feeling of familiarity wouldn't leave him. He had no idea that over a decade ago, as a child, he had indeed crossed paths with the Zen'in brothers, long before fate brought them back together. Not long after, Geto Suguru and Amini Riko rushed to his side. Gojo! You're covered in blood, are you hurt? Geto asked, face full of worry. Riko studied his eerily calm eyes, feeling a strange distance. Did something happen here? Nothing much. Just ran into a rather interesting guy. Gojo flashed his usual carefree smile at Riko. So, you showed up after all. Guess that means you chose to walk away, huh? TCH, Brat really knows how to make trouble. Hey! Riko puffed up angrily, cheeks red. They had given her the choice, and now he was teasing her for it. But beneath her flustered pout, her heart was warm. From today on, she had time to live her youth freely. Gojo, Geto said gravely, this isn't over. With Riko still alive, Master Tenjin, and the entire Jujutsu world, will come down on us. Scared, Geto? Don't joke. We're the strongest. The three of them walked together, the evening sun stretching their shadows across the ground, two long, one short. A simple silhouette, warm and unshakable. So, these past few years you've just been mooching off a woman? Zen'in Shinsuke looked at Toji with a deadly serious expression. You're a grown man, strong and healthy. How could you stoop to living off someone else? Toji, you've fallen too far. I told you already, that was in the past. I'm married into the Fushiguro family now. Toji's tone was helpless. Why did his brother always have to harp on the mooching thing? It wasn't like he didn't earn his own keep. Married in, huh? Well, I suppose that's something. I heard from the old man you've got a son too. Someday, you'll have to introduce me. Thinking about the fact that Toji was now a family man, Shinsuke decided to temporarily forgive his brother's years of soft living. Megumi. I haven't seen him in years. Clearly, Toji wasn't exactly model father material. His heart carried guilt toward his son, but he never knew how to make it up to him, so he simply sold Megumi off to the Zen'in clan. But enough about me. Shouldn't you be the one explaining? Why did you disappear back then without a word? Toji's eyes locked on Shinsuke. Most of his resentment had faded over the years, but without knowing the truth, there was still a thorn lodged in his chest. Back then, Toji hadn't known much. All he understood was that both he and his brother were pariahs in the Zen'in clan, mocked and scorned at every turn. His brother always seemed unbothered, acting like none of it mattered. Then one day, as if he had become a completely different person, Shinsuke unleashed a massacre inside the Zen'in estate. Toji never learned the details. What he did know was that after that night, nearly a third of the clan was dead. From that day onward, his brother vanished from the Jujutsu world, and whenever the Zenins spoke of him, their sneers were mixed with a trace of fear. At Toji's question, Shinsuke fell silent for a moment. "The old man never told you?" He finally began recounting that bloody day in a low voice. The gist of it was simple: no matter how the clan mocked or belittled him, Shinsuke never cared. Their words wouldn't break him. He had the strength of the heavenly restriction, and developing its potential kept him too busy to bother with the chatter of cursed energy monkeys. But when some in the clan turned their scorn on their mother, the only person in the Zen'in who had ever shown him warmth, Shinsuke lost all restraint. In a fit of rage, he slaughtered them. If their mother hadn't thrown herself before him, begging him in tears to stop, and if Naruto Zen'in hadn't intervened, the clan might have been wiped out entirely. Yet Shinsuke couldn't understand why his mother, after being hurt by the family, would still plead for their lives. They quarreled bitterly, and in his fury, he left the Zen'in house for good, slipping into a life of self-indulgence abroad. During those wandering years, he thought about many things. Gradually, his anger dulled, but he never figured out how to face his mother again. Until Naruto tracked him down, bringing with him the news of her death. For a long while, Shinsuke sank into despair. It was during that time that he crossed paths with Yuki Tsukumo. Time softened the edges of his rage, and he learned to live more freely, until Toji's affairs pulled him back into the Zen'in orbit once again. The one regret he carried was never getting to see his mother one last time. Chapter 9: The Zen'in Brothers. After listening to Shinsuke's explanation, Toji's face remained unreadable, but a great deal of weight lifted from his heart. If it was all for their mother's sake, then he could understand. But, for his brother to put their mother above him and forget about his little brother, that still stung. "She left a letter for you. I've been holding on to it. If you want it, come get it," Toji said. "No need. You keep it. It's just useless words anyway." Shinsuke waved it off. So much time had passed, he had no desire to reopen those wounds. He knew his mother too well. The letter was probably filled with apologies. And for what? None of it had been her fault. The one at fault had always been this twisted world. "What about you? What are you planning now?" Toji asked, eyes narrowing on his brother. "Obviously, to eat, to find some work and scrape by first." Shinsuke nearly blurted out what was really on his mind. But thinking of how his younger brother already had a family and a child, he couldn't very well keep loafing around, living off others. Bad influence and all. "Since you're back, don't run off again. Work with me. Let's become sorcerer killers together." It was an earnest invitation. With their unique circumstances, assassins were the only path open to them. They could never be like sorcerers, exorcising curses. "No thanks. Killing for hire doesn't interest me." Shinsuke shook his head without hesitation. He already had a plan. His priority now was to grow stronger, fast. The Jujutsu world was heading for turbulent times, and with his current strength, he couldn't guarantee the safety of the people he wanted to protect. Thinking of what his nephew would one day endure, Shinsuke clenched his fists. If anyone dared touch his family, even Sukuna, he'd crush them with a single kick. Of course, training wasn't everything. A man needed to earn a living too. And aside from freeloading, what job made money faster? You'd do better to give up on this sorcerer killer nonsense. Go home. Be a father. Raise your kid properly. Stop wasting your life. Shinsuke scolded his younger brother like a nagging parent. "Like hell I need you lecturing me. I'm leaving. Don't come pestering me for nothing." Toji got up and walked off, tired of his brother's long-windedness. Always playing the old mother hen. Always so damn irritating. Yet as he left, his lips curved into the faintest smile. His brother's sudden return had lifted a loneliness he hadn't even realized he carried. Watching him walk away, Shinsuke chuckled and called after him, "Remember to take me to meet my nephew and niece tomorrow." Toji froze for a fraction of a second, the corner of his mouth twitching. Then, Without a word, he yanked the door open and strode out as if he hadn't heard a thing. "This brat," Shinsuke muttered, shaking his head. While the Zen'in brothers finally untangled their past, chaos erupted at Jujutsu High. The prodigies Gojo Satoru and Geto Suguru had openly defied the higher-ups, escorting the star plasma vessel, Riko Amanai, back home. Their decision had endangered the entire balance of the Jujutsu world. If Master Tenjin failed to merge with the vessel, his body would evolve to a higher state, risking the loss of his consciousness. And if that happened, Tenjin might very well turn against humanity, siding instead with the curses. An evolved Tenjin would be far closer to a curse than to a human ally. As the higher-ups debated punishments for Gojo and Geto, Master Tenjin himself spoke up. To everyone's shock, he bore no ill will toward the two. Instead, he reassured them, if Riko Amanai refused to assimilate, that was her choice. For now, he could still maintain control of himself. There was no need to rush. "See, Gojo? Master Tenjin is surprisingly kind. He didn't even blame us." Inside Jujutsu High's empty basketball court, Geto spoke as he wiped the sweat from his brow. Yuri Shoko leaned lazily against the doorframe, a lollipop in her mouth, watching them play. "Of course. That's why he's Master Tenjin," Gojo replied with a grin. "A real big shot wouldn't bully a little girl." Watching the two laugh and shoot hoops, Principal Yaga felt his blood pressure spike. If not for Tengen's leniency, these two would have already been branded as curse users. "Principal, you look a little upset. Something wrong? Come on, tell us, make us happy too," Gojo said with a mischievous smile, ever the tactless instigator. "Brat, are you itching for a beating?" Yaga's voice boomed with authority, making Gojo shrink back slightly. He knew full well that thanks to his and Geto's reckless stunt, Yaga had probably been chewed out by the Council of Old Geezers. "Don't be mad, Sensei. Honestly, with our power, the higher-ups can't really touch us anyway." Gojo spoke lightly, but his words carried weight. With the 6 eyes and the limitless at his disposal, plus his recent awakening of reverse cursed technique and even the hidden hollow purple, his strength had already reached a terrifying level. He was confident that his current strength was enough to make the higher-ups back down. And indeed, they hadn't really pressed the issue, just barked a few half-hearted threats, but never dared to take actual action. Yes, you two are the strongest. Happy now?" Principal Yaga sighed, too tired to argue with Gojo anymore. Sooner or later, that kid would understand, there were some problems that brute strength alone could never solve. "Gojo, we've identified the people who tried to assassinate you." Yuri Shoko's voice cut into their conversation. Back when Gojo and Geto had sent Amanai Riko home, she had quietly asked Mei to look into the assassins. The two hadn't even bothered to hide their tracks. Their identities had been dug up with ease, right down to the last detail. They're from the Zen'in clan. Both are natural-born without cursed energy. The elder, Zen'in Shinsuke, slaughtered dozens of Zen'in clan members 8 years ago and fled overseas. Looks like he just returned. The younger, Zen'in Toji, now renamed Fushiguro Toji after marrying into the Fushiguro family, is a contract sorcerer killer. The words made both Gojo and Geto pause. The Zen'in clan? No cursed energy? That's impossible. Geto's brow furrowed in disbelief. A man with no cursed energy had been able to push Gojo Satoru to the brink? How did that make sense? It's true. No cursed energy whatsoever. That much I'm certain of. Gojo's voice was firm. He hadn't sensed even the faintest trace of cursed power from those two. By the way, Shoko, Gojo tilted his head, what's this about Shinsuke slaughtering half the Zen'in clan 8 years ago? Shoko shrugged, her tone lazy. Zen'in clan. No cursed energy. Do I really need to explain more? I see. Gojo rubbed his chin, thoughtful. As I thought. He really is an interesting man. From the moment their eyes had met, he had seen it, that unwavering, absolute confidence. The kind only true strength could give. Meanwhile, Shinsuke had no money for a hotel, so he returned to the small house he'd lived in before going abroad. It was right on the edge of Zen'in clan territory. Still pretty clean. Not bad. The place wasn't as rundown as he expected. Someone had clearly been maintaining it, probably that old man Nobito, or maybe his foolish little brother. Exhausted, Shinsuke collapsed onto the bed and drifted off immediately. Tomorrow, he would meet his nephew. Then maybe he'd think about getting a job. After all, he couldn't exactly go knocking on the Zen'in clan's door asking for money. Chapter 10, What are you staring at? Go cook already! Early the next morning, Zen'in Shinsuke stood bare-chested in the courtyard, training under the rising sun. Even though heavenly restriction had already gifted him an absurdly powerful body, he never slacked off on his training. The cultivation method recorded in his manual was simple. First, one needed a body free of cursed energy, yet strong enough to withstand the strain. Then, train relentlessly, push the body to the brink of collapse. At that breaking point, faint traces of chi and blood energy would naturally be born. With heavenly restrictions' heightened perception, one could guide this energy into the acupoints, nourishing them. Otherwise, the energy would simply dissipate. Simple in theory, brutal in practice. For someone like Shinsuke, it was especially difficult. His body was too strong, reaching exhaustion was almost impossible. Often, before he even reached his limit, heavenly restrictions recovery would already restore his stamina. That was why, after so many years, he had only managed to fill 3 acupoints. Who? In the yard, Shinsuke dropped into push-ups, his body moving so fast he blurred into an afterimage, pounding the ground like a human piledriver. Any wealthy widow who walked by would probably go weak in the knees. This was his method, burn energy faster than his regeneration could keep up, forcing himself into true exhaustion. Back overseas, he relied on heavy weights for training. But having just returned, he hadn't prepared any equipment yet. Meanwhile, by the wall connecting to the Zen'in estate, a small figure peeked from behind a tree. Big curious eyes watched the monstrous man train, shielding against the gusts of wind stirred up by his movements. Half an hour passed before Shinsuke finally felt a hint of fatigue. His body, soaked in sweat, flushed with heat as the energy of blood and flesh began to rise, threading into his acupoints to be nourished. Phew! Exhaling hot air, he stood upright. Already, his stamina was recovering at an absurd speed, like a perpetual motion machine. And people still claimed that the body heavenly restriction gave was something any sorcerer could achieve with enough effort? What a joke! Did they even understand heavenly restriction? Even his brother Toji hadn't fully unlocked its potential. Kid, what are you doing hiding behind that tree? Shinsuke walked toward the courtyard wall. He had noticed the little spy from the very start. Startled, Zen'in Maki stepped out, tilting her head back to meet his gaze. Her big, watery eyes locked on this man who seemed more like a monster than human. I was just passing by. Of course, that was a lie. Everyone in the Zen'in clan knew this courtyard belonged to Zen'in Shinsuke. The fact that it hadn't been demolished was already a token gesture of respect toward the clan head. Normally, no one would set foot here. Only someone like Maki, constantly bullied and marginalized, would wander to such a place. But she hadn't expected to actually find someone here. And not just anyone, but the same man from yesterday, the cousin with no cursed energy. Shinsuke crouched down, placing a large hand on her small shoulder, squeezing slightly. Him. Not a complete weakling. Feeling her bone structure, he made a rough judgment. Her cursed energy was faint, almost negligible. But correspondingly, her physical body was stronger than an ordinary person's. Not heavenly restriction level, but close. A watered-down version, in a sense. This place is taken. Don't come here again. He pinched her cheek lightly before turning back toward the house. Zen'in Maki touched her cheek, still red from Shinsuke's pinch. She stared at his retreating back in silence, then turned and ran home. She had to figure it out. Why did the clan members who mocked her tremble in fear at him? After washing up, Shinsuke went to find Toji. Without bothering to explain, he grabbed his brother and dragged him along. Hurry up. Don't make me beat you. Quit pulling me. I know the way, Toji snapped, irritation all over his face. But beneath it was a flicker of nerves. He had originally decided to stay out of his kids' lives, just dump them on the Zen'in clan and walk away. But now, with Shinsuke around, ignoring them suddenly didn't feel like an option anymore. Shinsuke ignored his grumbling. Instead, he spent his last bit of money on fruit and milk. Kids need proper nutrition if they're going to grow. Following Toji through a twisting alley, they climbed a narrow stairway and stopped at a modest door. This the place? Toji gave a curt nod, silent. Knock, knock, knock. The door creaked open. A boy with spiky hair glared up at them, eyes full of suspicion. Who are you? Shinsuke's mouth twitched. He shot Toji a sidelong glance. Seriously? How long has it been since you've seen your own kid? He doesn't even recognize you. Pathetic, though, I'll admit, kind of funny. It's me, Toji said flatly, looking down at Fushiguro Megumi. Megumi frowned, studying him like he was trying to piece something together. Megumi, who's at the door? A clear voice came from inside. A girl older than Megumi hurried over, still wearing a cooking apron. She peeked out and froze. Dad? You came back? Fushiguro Tsumaki blinked in confusion. Wasn't this stepfather supposed to have run off with her mom? Why was he here now? Did he blow through his money and come back to take whatever was left? Before the awkward silence grew heavier, Shinsuke stepped in with a smile, holding out the fruit. Hello. I'm your dad's older brother. You can call me Uncle. Uncle. Tsumaki repeated, baffled, but she politely accepted the fruit and opened the door wider. Please, come in. Did you come here for something? Megumi, get some water for Dad and Uncle, she added. Fine. Megumi obeyed, but the way he glared at Toji made it obvious he didn't trust him. He was worried this unfamiliar dad would cause trouble, maybe even try to split him and Tsumaki apart. Shinsuke waved a hand. Relax. Starting today, your dad will live here with you too. Whatever you need, just ask him. If you're short on money, hit him up. If you're hungry, make him cook. And if he refuses, come find me. I'll straighten him out for you. Megumi and Tsumaki both froze, stunned. Oi, who said you get to decide that? Toji growled, annoyed. Because I'm your older brother. Got a problem with that? Shinsuke shot back without hesitation. This isn't up for discussion. If I hear you let these two suffer even a little, you'd better be ready to get your ass kicked. Then, with a casual kick to Toji's leg, he barked, What are you standing there for? Go cook! TCH. Grumbling, Toji shuffled into the kitchen. His face was sour, but deep down, he didn't dare defy Shinsuke. The scene stirred up old memories of being bossed around and beaten as a kid. Never refuse when your big brother tells you to do something, Shinsuke reminded him coolly. Why not? Toji muttered. Because I'm your big brother. And if you say no, you get beaten. Chapter 11, Master above, please accept your disciple's bow. No need, really. I can handle this. I'm good at cooking. Tsumaki hurriedly spoke up, flustered. The sudden changes had left her reeling. Out of nowhere, her stepfather had returned. And now, somehow, she and Megumi had also gained an uncle. From the way things looked, her stepfather seemed almost afraid of this uncle. You don't need to worry, little niece. Just sit down and wait to eat. From now on, cooking is his job. Zen'in Shinsuke's tone grew heavier when he heard Tsumaki say she was used to cooking. Look at this, such a young girl, and not only does she go to school, she takes care of her little brother, does laundry, cooks, she can do everything. Meanwhile, this so-called father spent his days gambling and drifting about. Don't be fooled by how your dad looks. He's actually really skilled in the kitchen. Not that Toji had a choice. Shinsuke had beaten those skills into him when they were kids, precisely to prepare for situations like this. Alright then. Tsumaki gradually accepted the arrangement. If Megumi's father stayed, maybe her brother wouldn't feel so lonely anymore. She herself didn't particularly mind Toji's presence, it might even be good for Megumi to experience a little fatherly affection. As for Megumi, he seemed completely indifferent. He wasn't close to Toji anyway. As long as Tsumaki was fine with it, he had no objections. Uncle, can I ask something? Tsumaki hesitated, then spoke softly. My mother didn't come back with you? She needed to know. Where was her mother? Was she even alive? That. Shinsuke froze, unsure how to answer. He'd already asked Toji about this on the way over. And Toji's answer had been blunt, he didn't know either. The truth was, Toji had only married into the Fushiguro family because they had money. Tsumaki's mother had been divorced, raising a child alone, and wanted her kid to have a companion. Toji looked decent enough on paper, so she married him. Afterward, once the kids had each other, the adults went their separate ways. The marriage had always been more of a practical arrangement than a real bond. Shinsuke cleared his throat. We don't know where she is. Maybe she has something important to take care of. Give it some time, she'll probably come back. Zen'in Shinsuke could only offer such reassurance. Tsumaki's mother and Toji had surprisingly aligned on how to care for the kids, so it wasn't hard to see why they had ended up together. Later, Shinsuke would let Toji try and find out more. A child without a mother was no small matter. I see. Tsumaki gave a faint smile, not showing much concern. After that, Shinsuke chatted casually with Tsumaki and Megumi. Kids were easier to sway, and before long, both had accepted their new uncle. From today onward, they now had someone attending parent-teacher meetings. Not long after, Toji cooked a meal. His passable skills reduced the initial awkwardness between him and Megumi, achieving Shinsuke's purpose, albeit roughly. Life was long, over time, their bonds would grow stronger, slowly forming the semblance of a family. After eating and lingering for a bit, Shinsuke left. Toji returned to his original place to pack up, preparing to move in with Tsumaki and Megumi. Pressured by his older brother, he dared not resist. By the time Shinsuke returned to the Zen'in residence, dusk had settled. At the steps outside the main house, he found two little kids sitting, Zen'in Maki and her younger sister, Mai. Seeing Shinsuke, Mai jumped in fright and scrambled behind Maki. Her eyes wide with fear, she whimpered. Big sister, that creepy uncle is here. Let's run. For some reason, Mai was terrified of Shinsuke. Shinsuke twitched at the corner of his mouth and strode forward. Ignoring Maki, he reached down, grabbed Mai under the arms, and lifted her effortlessly. His voice was sharp. Who's the creepy uncle now? From now on, when you see me, you call me cousin. Got it? Wha? Big sister, help me. The creepy uncle is going to eat me. Mai cried, kicking and squirming. Tears and snot streamed down her face, as if he were some man-eating monster. Shinsuke paused, thinking. Am I really that terrifying? He knew Mai was timid, but surely not this timid. Was he more frightening than a curse? Stop crying. If you keep it up, I might really eat you. Humph. Mai quickly covered her mouth, letting out muffled sobs. She was terrified, but more afraid of being eaten. The truth was, she had overheard Maki asking their mother why the Zen'in family feared this cousin so much. Their mother had called Shinsuke a monster, and young Mai naturally took it to heart. She convinced herself, this man only looked human, inside, he was a monster. Next time you see me, no crying. Understand? Wha? Mai nodded furiously, already deciding never to come here again, even with her sister. Seeing Mai behave, Shinsuke set her down. He turned to Maki, who looked calm and collected, and raised an eyebrow. She seemed far more mature than her sister. Makes sense. In the Zen'in household, outcasts grow up fast. Now, tell me, what are you doing here? I warned you this morning, didn't I? I want you to teach me. Maki clenched her fists, her eyes firm. She wanted the power to make the Zen'in family stop mocking and bullying her. She couldn't use cursed energy, much less advanced techniques, and had no idea how to instill fear in those who had tormented her. But this cousin, he couldn't use cursed energy either, yet the Zen'in family feared him. Even Naoya, who often mocked her, had lost all playfulness in his eyes when he heard Shinsuke's name, replaced only by respect and fear. Teach you what? To get stronger? Shinsuke's eyes studied her closely. He could tell she was serious. Yes. To get stronger. You can make me stronger, right? Maki's eyes glimmered with determination. Even as a little girl, she already understood the importance of strength. Shinsuke felt a flicker of interest. Not bad. I can see your determination. But, sorry, I'm not interested in teaching little kids. He refused. Teach a little girl to get stronger? Absurd. Slap. At her words, Maki immediately knelt, startling Mai. Big sister. What are you doing? Mai froze, but Maki fixed Shinsuke with a serious gaze, then kowtowed. Master above, please accept your disciple's bow. Her childish voice echoed across the yard, leaving Shinsuke utterly dumbfounded. Had he somehow gone back in time? Why was she kowtowing? Chapter 12, The Apprenticeship Threshold, Free Labor. If you don't agree, I'll keep kneeling until you do. Maki's voice was firm, unwavering. She didn't know why her cousin refused to teach her, but she had seen enough TV shows to know that kneeling and kowtowing usually got results. And if it didn't, that only meant the teacher was testing her. All she had to do was keep kneeling. Zen'in Shinsuke couldn't help but laugh at her. Earlier, he had thought she seemed mature, but in the end, she was still just a child. All right, get up. You agreed. Maki immediately brightened. What are you thinking? Don't be so naive. Don't you know that apprenticeship requires a test? Shinsuke said, keeping a serious face. Oh, right. Maki nodded thoughtfully. He made a good point. Then come at me with your test. Compared to acquiring strength, a mere test was nothing. Fine. Here's my condition: the moment you can independently exorcise a grade 1, grade 2 cursed spirit, I'll teach you how to get stronger. Shinsuke had initially considered setting the bar at grade 1, but seeing her determination, he decided to give her a little hope. Defeating a grade 2 cursed spirit should roughly meet the threshold for getting stronger. Deal! It's settled. Maki didn't even know what a grade 2 cursed spirit looked like, but she firmly believed she could do it someday. Satisfied, she grabbed her still whining younger sister and left. Shinsuke shook his head with a smile. The Zen'in family, sooner or later, their arrogance would be their downfall. He didn't care what happened to them in the end. He was already planning to ask the old man Nobito for a favor, arranging a low-paying job for him. After all, if something's going to disappear eventually, better to get what you can while you still can. The next day came quickly. True to his word, after training, Shinsuke swaggered into the Zen'in estate, earning the displeasure of the entire household. But he loved seeing them frustrated yet powerless. Let them dislike him, if they dare, they could try to stop him. Damn it, this guy is way too arrogant. Once Shinsuke disappeared from view, they whispered among themselves. Shoo, keep it down. Don't let that freak hear you, or he might go crazy again. Is he really that strong? Some of the younger members had gone on missions before, but none had witnessed Shinsuke's madness firsthand. They couldn't believe a person without cursed energy could almost single-handedly overwhelm the Zen'in family. That's why they call him a freak. Both of those brothers are freaks. In a corner, Maki quietly witnessed this scene, her resolve strengthening. She also felt a flicker of admiration for her future master. So this is what a true strong person feels like? All these arrogant people only dared whisper behind his back. Meanwhile, on the other side, a young man also observed from afar. 16-year-old Zen'in Naoya hid behind a building, watching Shinsuke's back. His eyes were a mix of fear and awe. Big brother Shinsuke, still so powerful. Even more terrifying than before. Naoya, lucky enough to have witnessed Shinsuke's tyrannical side years ago, had already become his devoted admirer, but only dared to watch from afar. Then his gaze shifted to the head of the family. Zen'in Shinsuke showed no courtesy toward Nobito. Old man, set me up with a job I don't actually have to work at. He reached out directly, asking for money through a position, blunt, perhaps impolite, but requesting a job shouldn't be too much to ask, right? Nobito tilted his beard and immediately realized what kind of freeloader he was dealing with. What do you want? With your skills, do you even need money? He didn't immediately agree, wary that this young man might be digging a trap. Making money isn't hard, but it's a waste of time. Shinsuke wanted to spend his time training, so naturally, he preferred money for nothing. After all, empty pockets won't pay the bills in modern society. Then I'll set you up as a part-time teacher at Tokyo Jujutsu High. I can arrange that. Nobito knew Shinsuke wanted to freeload. Luckily, it was an easy job, and for the sake of the Zen'in family's reputation, he could manage it. Why not just hand him cash directly? Nobito smirked. Did this kid really think the Zen'in family was rolling in money? A clan built on cursed energy and techniques didn't hand out cash. Even he, as the family head, occasionally took missions for extra income. What? Teaching at Jujutsu High? Shinsuke froze. He had assumed Nobito would arrange some cushy corporate position, but teaching at Jujutsu High? A joke, surely. You want me, a guy without cursed energy, to teach a bunch of sorcerers? Teach what? Martial arts? Ahem, it's just a title. You don't actually have to teach. Nobito explained patiently. Isn't it supposed to be easy? At Jujutsu High, as long as you don't take missions, you get your monthly salary for free. Less profit, sure, but no risk. Doesn't that suit you perfectly? The base salary for teachers at Jujutsu High wasn't high, but mission commissions for exorcising curses could be substantial. If you didn't want to take missions, you'd be a bit poor, but at least you got free money. Even top-grade sorcerer Yuki Tsukumo didn't take missions, yet still received a modest monthly wage. Fine, fine. Shinsuke waved his hand. A free paycheck? Why not take it? If things got rough, he could always return to his old tricks and do a quick hustle. But working for real? Never. That was his principle. With the money secured, Shinsuke left satisfied. Meanwhile, Nobito made a few calls, leveraging the Zen'in family's long-standing connections to smooth over Shinsuke's personnel placement at Tokyo Jujutsu High. After all, reputation was cheap, might as well use it. This should improve the kid's impression of the Zen'in family, at least a little, Nobito muttered to himself. He had never looked down on Shinsuke and his brother like other family members did, just adopted a hands-off approach. He didn't undervalue them, nor mock them, simply treated them as ordinary Zen'in clan members. Even when Toji had seized many of the clan's powerful curse tools, he hadn't minded. The Zen'in family had instilled the importance of cursed energy and techniques deep into their bones, and Nobito was no exception. But as the two brothers' abilities grew, Nobito gradually shifted from indifference, trying to ease tensions between the family and the brothers. Even if they couldn't become one big happy family, at least there shouldn't be hostility. Nobito believed that Shinsuke coming to him for help meant he still recognized the Zen'in name. If he satisfied his needs, Shinsuke would remember it. The vision sounded noble. In reality, Shinsuke only wanted to freeload. If you gave it, he'd take it. If you didn't, he'd strong-arm it. Chapter 13, The Correct Way to Unlock Heavenly Restriction. The higher-ups of the Jujutsu world. In a dimly lit room, a group of mysterious elders gathered for discussion. That brat, Gojo Satoru, has already awakened his technique. It won't be long before he becomes the strongest sorcerer of this era. An old, indistinct figure voiced his opinion. Gojo's strength was undeniable, but his overwhelming power had shattered the delicate balance, leading to the appearance of stronger, more dangerous curses. Moreover, Gojo's reputation among the higher-ups was far from favorable. He was seen as arrogant, unruly, and utterly defiant of authority. In short, he was no obedient pawn, and that gave the council a collective headache. Lord Tenjin is too kind. If it were up to me, I'd have long shown Gojo and his ilk the price of defying orders. At that, the other silhouettes turned their calm gazes toward the speaker, their silence almost mocking. And do you truly believe your words aren't laughable? Cough. What? Am I wrong? The old man's face flushed, but he stubbornly insisted his reasoning was sound. Enough. We'll end the discussion about Gojo here. What's done is done. Bringing up the past was meaningless. By the way, the man from the Zen'in clan has returned, and thanks to Nobito, he's even been placed in Jujutsu High as a teacher. What's your take on that? Oh? You mean that tyrant? It was clear the higher-ups were well aware of the bloody history within the Zen'in family. No cursed energy, yet strong enough to rival a grade 1 sorcerer. What a freak! And now he's to be a teacher at Jujutsu High? You must be joking. Well, the Zen'in clan's face must be saved. Just treat him as another useless mouth to feed. After all, Jujutsu High is already full of so-called wastes. Even special-grade sorcerers like Yuki Tsukumo were branded as burdens, so what harm was one more? At the very least, letting the Zen'in clan owe them a favor might prove useful in the future. Time passed, and a year slipped by in the blink of an eye. That summer flew quickly. Zen'in Shinsuke spent most of it immersed in training, occasionally checking in on his nephew and niece. As for Jujutsu High, he never set foot there. His salary arrived punctually every month regardless, so why bother showing up? But in that year, Shinsuke also revealed to Toji the correct way to unlock the power of heavenly restriction. So this is why, despite both of us bearing heavenly restriction, you're stronger than me? Drenched in sweat, Toji felt a faint warmth rise within his body, his expression filled with surprise. His raw physical strength, his resistance to cursed energy, his hyper-sharpened senses, all of these were innate. He had never once thought training was necessary. Instead, he had spent most of his life honing skills, killing techniques, weapon mastery, and combat instinct. It's not over yet. Use your mind to sense it, then guide it into this point in your left brain. Shinsuke reminded him, ensuring Toji wouldn't waste the precious chi and blood power he had painstakingly tempered. Following Shinsuke's instructions, Toji completed his very first session of cultivation. And as he felt this power unique to heavenly restriction awaken within him, it was as though Toji had opened the door to an entirely new world. It turned out heavenly restriction wasn't truly a shackle. It possessed its own unique power, no weaker than cursed energy. You figured this out on your own? Toji looked at Zen'in Shinsuke, curiosity flashing in his eyes. Of course. Shinsuke admitted without hesitation. After all, the cheat was his, saying he discovered it himself wasn't exactly wrong. Focus on your training. Stop wasting time thinking about revenge on the Jujutsu world. If you have that kind of energy, use it to get stronger. Mockery, disdain, ridicule, none of it mattered. Strength was the only true law. Who said anything about revenge? I stopped caring about that a long time ago. Toji shot back, annoyed. These days, between raising 2 kids and working to put food on the table, he barely had the energy to hold grudges. Maybe it was Shinsuke's influence, but Toji had let go of many things. Pride? Ego? Empty words. No one's ridicule could diminish the strength he had now. No cursed energy? So what? His brother didn't have it either. It wasn't like he was alone in that. Rying. Shinsuke's phone buzzed. Hello? Moshi, did you recognize my voice? On the other end was Yuki Tsukumo. Oh, it's you. Got the money ready? Hey, that hurts. Is that all we ever talk about? So, you've prepared the one-year interest, right? Silence. Yuki was clearly speechless. Whatever. Tokyo Jujutsu High. I'll be waiting there. Click. She hung up in irritation, clearly fuming. Shinsuke, unfazed, turned to Toji. Once you fill your first acupoint, I'll teach you the next step. Remember, training the 8 inner gates has countless details. Handle it carelessly, and the backlash will cripple you. Whether Toji could progress that far, Shinsuke didn't know. But he did know this: the further one advanced with the gates, the harder the training became. Even after a year of grueling effort, he himself had yet to fully open the 4th gate. Compared to chakra cultivation, this path was many times more difficult. You're going to Jujutsu High? Toji, having memorized the instructions, couldn't help but ask. He hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but his sharpened senses made it impossible not to hear. It wasn't like he could just plug his ears. Of course. I'm a specially appointed taijutsu instructor there. Going to Jujutsu High is perfectly natural, isn't it? Toji stared at him, dumbfounded. Was this guy serious? You? A Jujutsu High teacher? What's wrong with that? Shinsuke casually changed into the black short-sleeve shirt issued by Jujutsu High. His explosive muscles stretched the fabric taut. One look was enough to scream professional combat instructor. I'm off. Still need to collect my payment. If I'm late, that woman Yuki will vanish without a trace. That summer, both Gojo Satoru and Geto Suguru officially advanced to special grade sorcerers. Gojo, in particular, was hailed as the strongest of his generation. From then on, the once inseparable duo split, taking on missions separately. They never again fought side by side. Inside the school, Geto slumped onto a bench, exhaustion etched into his face. Dark circles clung beneath his eyes. Nearly the entire summer had been spent in endless exorcisms, swallowing curse after curse, day after day. Like a machine, he safeguarded ordinary people's lives. But, were these people really worth it? He thought back on the ignorant mobs, the ugliness of human hearts he'd witnessed all year. Doubt gnawed at him. Why was he even a sorcerer? Why protect people like them? The stench of curses made him sick to his core. Hibara, do you really think you can keep being a sorcerer? Geto suddenly asked the junior beside him, who radiated an almost blinding optimism. Hibara propped his chin on his hand, thinking for a moment before smiling brightly. I've honestly never thought about it. But as long as I do what I can, it makes me feel fulfilled and happy. I see. That simple answer quieted Geto's restless thoughts, if only for a moment. Chapter 14, Suguru Geto on the edge of extremity. Tap. 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 A woman strode boldly into the room, one hand on her hip as her sharp gaze fell upon the weary-looking Suguru Geto. You must be Geto-kun, right? She asked with an almost playful tone. So, what type of woman do you like? The stranger's strikingly beautiful face, unfamiliar yet radiant, instantly put Geto on guard. Gray-haired Hibara, however, perked up with interest. I like gentle, kind women. By sheer instinct, he felt that the newcomer wasn't a bad person. Oh? Is that so? Yuki Tsukumo glanced at him, smirking. A textbook answer, huh? Hey, well. I'll leave you two to talk. I've got something to do. Scratching his head sheepishly, Hibara left the room with a smile. Once he was gone, Geto narrowed his eyes. Who are you? The woman leaned casually against the desk and introduced herself. Yuki Tsukumo. Geto froze. The name was familiar, linked to a swirl of bad rumors. Seeing his puzzled look, Yuki shrugged with a lazy grin and pointed at herself. Yup, that's me. The so-called special-grade sorcerer who never takes missions and spends her time loafing around abroad. Sitting down nonchalantly, her expression was calm, almost detached. Since Gojo Satoru and Geto had both recently risen to special grade, it was only natural for her, their senior, to stop by for a greeting. I'd never really cared for Jujutsu High. She began, speaking as though musing aloud. Then she launched into her criticism, comparing Jujutsu High's constant exorcising of curses to little more than symptom treatment. What I want, she declared, is to create a world where curses cannot exist in the first place. Geto's empty gaze flickered, a faint ripple disturbing the still water of his heart. He stared at her, not quite understanding. Seems like you don't quite get it yet. Yuki leaned back, explaining calmly. Curses are born from the buildup of cursed energy leaking out of humans. To eliminate curses entirely, there are only two possible methods. First, remove cursed energy from all of humanity. Second, give everyone the ability to control their cursed energy. She went on, originally, I leaned toward the first option. After all, cases of people with almost no cursed energy exist thanks to heavenly restriction. But, even after years of research, I couldn't find a way. Not once. Complete absence of cursed energy is nearly impossible. In fact, in the entire world, I've only found two such cases. She had studied Zen'in Shinsuke for years and achieved nothing but mountains of debt. I've shelved that line of research for now. Too expensive, she admitted with a wry smile. Instead, I'm pursuing the second approach. What if every human could control cursed energy? If everyone became a sorcerer, then curses would never be born. For sorcerers, cursed energy leakage was negligible. They circulated it within their bodies, preventing the formation of curses. Only when negative energy festered uncontrollably did curses manifest. Geto fell silent. In just 1 year, he had exorcised countless curses, swallowed those grotesque and foul beings as part of his cursed technique, and witnessed again and again the ugliness of human hearts. His thoughts had grown increasingly chaotic, increasingly extreme. Yuki's words sparked something in his fractured heart, an idea both terrifying and intoxicating. So, if all non-sorcerers were killed, wouldn't that accomplish the second option? Geto muttered the words, dazed, almost as if speaking to himself. Yuki didn't flinch. Resting her chin on one hand, she stared ahead, her tone utterly calm. That would indeed work. She had thought of that method before too, but never seriously considered it for her own plan. This idea is the simplest version of the second option. A better method would be to place immense pressure on ordinary people, force them to become sorcerers in order to survive. In short, manufacture fear and crisis, push humanity into collective evolution. But I'm not that extreme, at least not right now. Yuki Tsukumo shrugged. Conscience, perhaps, kept her from taking things that far. Geto-kun, do you really hate non-sorcerers? I don't know. If you'd asked me before, I would have answered without hesitation, no, I don't hate them. But lately, I've begun to question their worth. Geto lowered his head, tangled in a haze of confusion. The fragile beauty of the weak, and their ugliness. He could no longer distinguish the two. I don't know anymore. Am I the one who despises non-sorcerers, or the one who protects them? Which side is truly me? Yuki folded her arms, her gaze turning toward the corridor ahead. It doesn't matter which is the real you. What matters is, right now, you're beginning to make a real choice. Her eyes lit up. You're here. From the shadows, Zen'in Shinsuke appeared, his eyes flicking briefly over the haggard Geto. Even though Riko Amanai had survived, it seemed this boy had still been tormented by the ugliness of humanity and the curses he was forced to consume. Geto's eyes widened at the familiar face. His dazed expression sharpened into alertness. You? What are you doing at Jujutsu High? Shinsuke spread his hands with a grin. I'm a teacher here. Isn't it normal for me to be around? Teacher? Impossible. I'd never seen you teach a single class. Isn't it normal for the PE teacher to skip out now and then? Wow, so in just 1 year, you managed to sneak into Jujutsu High as a teacher? Must have pulled a lot of strings. Yuki rose from her seat, eyeing him suspiciously. The idea of him being a teacher didn't sit right at all. Forget that for now. Shouldn't you settle your debt? Yuki puffed her cheeks, glaring as she turned away. Treat me to dinner, or you won't see a single yen from me. Fine, fine. Just didn't expect a special grade sorcerer to be so broke she can't even buy a meal. Hey, ghetto kid, don't end up like your good-for-nothing senpai here. Dinner didn't bother Shinsuke in the slightest. Humph. Yuki huffed, striding toward the exit. Geto-kun, I only came to say hi to you and Gojo. As for the star plasma vessel, don't worry. For certain reasons, Tenjin is stable for now. After bidding Geto farewell, she slipped on her helmet and tossed her motorcycle keys to Shinsuke. Can you ride? Who do you think you're talking to? Intrigued by her bike, Shinsuke put on the helmet and climbed on. Yuki followed, slipping onto the seat behind him and wrapping her arms around his waist without hesitation. See you around, Geto-kun. She waved as they revved the engine. Shinsuke turned his head toward the boy standing at the roadside, his eyes dull and lifeless. Kid, you look lost. As your teacher, here's a bit of advice. If you don't know which choice to make, then just do what feels right. Do what you enjoy. Take down the people you can't stand. Why overthink it? If someone screws with you, hit back. If you can't win, either run or endure it. Simple. Sometimes, being selfish saves you a lot of trouble. You call that being a teacher? Don't mislead him like that. Yuki sighed in exasperation. The only reply was the rumble of the motorcycle engine. Geto stood there, staring at their fading silhouettes, Yuki's words still echoing in his ears. Do what I enjoy. Chapter 15, Consider me, will you? Geto Suguru no longer knew what he liked, what he wanted. Back when he was partnered with Gojo Satoru on missions, confusion never weighed on him like this. But the further Gojo walked ahead, the more he left Geto behind. And now, Geto could no longer even recognize himself. Inside a quiet restaurant, Yuki Tsukumo happily devoured a Mexican chicken wrap, speaking between bites. Why did you say that kind of thing? Aren't you afraid he'll go down the wrong path? Zen'in Shinsuke rolled his eyes at her. Please. Between us, your words are way more likely to mislead him than mine. What was wrong with telling a kid to do what makes you happy? Not everyone was born to save the world, and not everyone had the power to, anyway. That's not fair. I was just sharing my perspective. How is that misleading? Yuki protested. All she'd done was exchange opinions with Geto. The choice, ultimately, was still his to make. She had faith that even in confusion, a special-grade sorcerer would make a decision they wouldn't regret. Shinsuke let out a short chuckle. Heh. In theory, she was right. A few casual words shouldn't carry such weight. But the truth was different. Geto was still just a teenager. Layer trauma upon exhaustion, and even the smallest push could ignite an inferno. Not that it mattered to Shinsuke. As a special lecturer, he'd said his piece, fulfilled his duty as a teacher, barely. What came of it was no concern of his. Oh, right, Yuki said casually, about the money. I'll have to delay repayment. Things are a bit tight right now. I'll get it back to you later. Her tone was utterly nonchalant, like she'd rehearsed the art of owing without shame. Shinsuke's cheek twitched. He knew it, this woman was just as much of a grifter as he was. So in the end, this trip was a loss, no money collected, and he even paid for her dinner. All he got out of it was the brief thrill of riding her motorcycle. Where are you freeloading these days? Yuki asked with feigned curiosity. Watch your mouth. Do I look like the type to live off women? Shinsuke replied smoothly, not a flicker of shame in his voice. Yuki gave him a look of mock disbelief. Don't tell me you've actually turned over a new leaf? I'm a contracted instructor at Jujutsu High now. No need for handouts. Strictly speaking, dropping the habit of mooching wasn't turning over a new leaf at all, it was more like reverting to the wrong path. Pfft, ha ha ha. Yuki burst into laughter, clutching her stomach. Don't make me laugh. You don't take missions either, same as me. That little salary from Jujutsu High, can it even compare to what you used to rake in daily? She simply didn't believe it. A man who had coasted on easy money for 7 or 8 years suddenly giving it up? Impossible. Men who've tasted fast cash don't settle for pocket change. Shinsuke didn't argue. He quietly continued eating. Wait, seriously? You're not mooching anymore? His calm expression stunned Yuki. Was this really the same greedy man she remembered? But Shinsuke had never thought of himself as greedy. He'd only ever sought money because overseas ventures required it, whether gambling for fun or funding his travels. Now, though, that life of indulgence was temporarily over. Yuki leaned in closer, her eyes narrowing. Wait, so you really quit freeloading? That means I have a chance, doesn't it? A chance at what? Shinsuke frowned, clearly missing her implication. Her eyes sparkled mischievously. If I'm not wrong, you're 26 now, right? 27 in traditional counting, basically pushing 30. At your age, still single, that's unacceptable. So, how about it? Ever consider getting a girlfriend? What about considering me? She leaned across the table, resting her hands on it, blinking playfully at him. If she could reel this man in, her first plan wouldn't need to be abandoned. After all, once they were a couple, she could use him freely, without spending a dime. 2 birds, 1 stone. But Shinsuke frowned, staring at her dazzling eyes. Don't even think about using this as an excuse not to pay me back. I'm warning you, I won't let you get away with it. This woman wasn't just trying to freeload a meal, she had her sights set on his body now. Truly wicked. Yuki sighed dramatically. TCH, and here I thought I'd hidden it well. You saw right through me. What an idiot. She muttered curses in her heart while biting into her chicken wrap. After the meal, she hopped onto her scooter and waved him goodbye. See you around. Don't miss me too much. As always, she came and went like the wind, off once more to search for her way of saving the world. But in her heart, she'd already made up her mind, if next time she returned and he still didn't have a girlfriend, she'd use more forceful methods. After all, she was a special-grade sorcerer. Taking down a man without cursed techniques would be child's play. Watching her leave, Shinsuke had a bad feeling. If he couldn't even get back the money she owed him, what were the odds he'd escape her schemes? Completely unaware that he'd been marked, he returned to his peaceful routine. Not long after, news reached him, special-grade sorcerer Geto Suguru had massacred an entire village. Even with his small butterfly effect interference, it hadn't been enough to prevent the tragedy. The higher-ups branded Geto a curse user and sentenced him to death. Shinsuke, however, paid it little mind. He simply carried on with his repetitive, ordinary life. In the courtyard, he hefted a boulder weighing several tons, squatting rapidly with it on his shoulders. Steam poured off his body like a boiling kettle, as if he had just stepped out of a sauna. Whoa! Cousin turned into a steam hero. Amazing! From a distance, Zen'in clapped excitedly, eyes sparkling with awe, mouth agape in pure admiration. Beside her, Maki imitated her future teacher's movements with a plank of wood, stubbornly training. Though she hadn't officially become his disciple, she came almost every day, determined to learn by observing how her cousin had grown so strong. Mai, who had once sworn never to set foot in this courtyard again, ended up tagging along out of loneliness. Without her sister, she felt too afraid. But when Maki ignored her protests and came anyway, Mai had no choice but to follow. At first, she kept her distance, trembling as she watched. But slowly, she realized her scary cousin wasn't a monster at all. He was just their older brother. And unlike others, he didn't bully them. From the girl who once cried at the sight of him, Mai had transformed into his #1 fangirl. After all, whenever she and her sister trained here, no one dared to pick on them anymore. That alone was enough for her to see him as a hero. Steam hero? Keep spouting nonsense and I really will eat you. Bleh. Mai's not scared anymore, she giggled, sticking out her tongue. Chapter 16, Mission? Little brat, looks like you're asking for a beating. Zen'in Shinsuke dropped the massive boulder from his shoulder and stalked toward Mai with a menacing expression. If I don't smack your butt red today, you'll never understand why flowers are so bright. The girl dared to make faces at him, her courage was getting out of hand. Ah! Sis, help me! Just as Mai turned to run, she collided headfirst into someone and tumbled to the ground. Rubbing her head, she looked up and froze. It was none other than Zen'in Naoya, the very cousin who bullied her and Maki constantly. Her face went pale. She scrambled up in a panic and immediately clung to Shinsuke's leg like a lifeline. Compared to Shinsuke, who merely liked to scare her, Naoya actually hurt them. Naoya's gaze swept lazily over the sisters, a flicker of jealousy flashing in his eyes. Why? Why could these two useless girls stay so close to Shinsuke and Ai? The next moment, he turned his attention fully on Shinsuke. Shinsuke looked him up and down, trying to recall who this kid even was. Be big brother Shinsuke, sir. I'm Zen'in Naoya, he stammered nervously. I came on the clan head's orders. Jujutsu High has assigned you a mission. The clan head said, it's up to you whether you accept. His trembling hands offered a folded note. In his eyes burned a feverish admiration, half fear, half worship. Yes. This was it. This was exactly the feeling. Shinsuke and Ai, terrifying as ever. A mission? Shinsuke blinked. Already? He'd only been drawing a salary for a year and they were getting impatient? Ignoring Naoya's strange look, he accepted the note and gave it a quick glance. Heh. Interesting. Got it. You can leave now. He waved casually, remembering belatedly that this brat was the son of old man Nobito. If he wasn't mistaken, wasn't Naoya also a complete fanboy of Toji? Why yes. Right away. Naoya spun on his heel and nearly stumbled out, his back stiff with excitement. His heart was pounding. He had actually exchanged words with Shinsuke and Ai. His obsession with the strong bordered on mania. Mai finally sighed in relief at Naoya's departure, only to be scooped up by a large hand. Ah cousin, I was wrong. Dangling in the air, she kicked her legs frantically, head bowed, fiddling her fingers with a pitiful air. Bonk! A sharp flick landed squarely on her forehead. Next time you dare make faces at me, it won't end this lightly. Shinsuke set her back down. Mai clutched her forehead, tears welling, not from grievance, but from the sting. It hurt like hell. Only after disciplining Mai did Shinsuke turn his attention to the mission details. It was an assignment from Jujutsu High. He was to take 2 students and leave them on a curse exorcising mission. He nearly laughed aloud. Was this some kind of joke? Still, he didn't refuse. For one, he'd freeloaded off Jujutsu High's salary for a year already, and maybe, just maybe, he felt the tiniest bit guilty. And 2, this mission was simple, yet the reward was generous. It was just a simple escort assignment, lead 2 students on a curse exorcising mission, let them handle the actual work, and only intervene if something went horribly wrong. His job was basically to keep them alive. Conveniently, someone's birthday was coming up soon. He could earn some extra cash, then swing by to visit his nephew and niece. The next day, dressed simply in a black top and white pants with 3 wooden sticks tucked at his waist, Zen'in Shinsuke made his way toward Jujutsu High. At the school gates, 2 figures had already been waiting for some time. What's taking so long? You don't think they ditched us, do you? Ammonai Riko crouched by the roadside, plucking at foxtail grass with boredom written all over her face. I doubt it. Beside her, Nanami Kento stood ramrod straight, his half-draped bangs hiding his eyes. Even as a student, his aura radiated the oppressive air of a corporate drone. So it's you too. Neither of them noticed when Shinsuke's towering form appeared beside them. Nanami's previously lazy eyes snapped into sharp focus. When did he arrive? He hadn't sensed a thing, and he was already a semi-grade 1 sorcerer. After this mission, he was practically guaranteed promotion. Yet he hadn't caught even a hint of Shinsuke's presence. Ah! It's you! Riko jumped to her feet, pointing at him excitedly. Why, you're the one leading us this time? Shinsuke tilted his head at her. So it's you, little flower. You became a sorcerer? He frowned slightly. Wasn't the star plasma vessel supposed to be incapable of awakening curse techniques? Though, exceptions did exist. Like that troublesome Yuki Tsukumo. Of course. And not just any technique, I awakened it thanks to a special grade sorcerer. Amazing, right? Riko puffed out her chest proudly. Originally, she had planned to return to a normal life with Kurwa. But Gojo and Geto had been wary of the Time Vessel Association's persistence and brought her to Jujutsu High for protection. Later, through a strange twist of fate, Yuki Tsukumo had helped her awaken a cursed technique, setting her on the path of a sorcerer. Oh! That was all Shinsuke gave her before turning to Nanami. I'm Nanami Kento. And you are, sensei. Nanami hadn't seen this man before. He'd met nearly every instructor at Jujutsu High, but this one didn't ring a bell. Zen'in Shinsuke. I know! Riko quickly cut in, her voice rising with excitement. You're the brother of that assassin who came after me last time, right? Gojo and the others told me everything. Shinsuke arched a brow. Your investigation's thorough enough. Fine, save the chatter. Let's go. But one thing, don't factor me into your plans. I'm only here to observe. The only time I'll step in is 1 second before you die. Yeah, we get it. You talk like we can't handle it ourselves. If it weren't for... Riko's words faltered, her tone dimming. If it weren't for Hybera's death, and Geto's spiral, they wouldn't have been assigned a chaperone at all. Shinsuke caught the look in her eyes but said nothing, turning to lead the way. He could guess well enough. The higher-ups were afraid of another accident. A supposed Grade 2 mission could easily escalate into a Grade 1 disaster. This time, their destination was a remote village. Reports said that at night, strange sounds echoed through the streets, like wild beasts tearing something apart. By morning, several villagers would be missing. The preliminary assessment, a curse was responsible. The upper limit of its threat should be Grade 1. Before long, the three of them arrived at the desolate village. With time to spare before nightfall, Riko and Nanami went to gather information. Excuse me, ma'am, could you tell us about the strange incidents here lately? Riko, ever the social butterfly, approached an elderly woman resting under a tree in her yard. Eh? The old lady squinted at her blankly, clearly hard of hearing. Strange events, ma'am. Has anything weird been happening here recently? Riko raised her voice. Oh, I've already eaten, thank you kindly. The woman replied with complete seriousness. No! I mean strange events. Like monsters, you know, monster. Ah. I see. Poor child. Losing your parents so young. But don't worry, life's hurdles can always be overcome. Look at me, old as I am, still living strong all by myself. The woman gazed at Riko with tender pity. Such a sweet girl. Orphan so young. Pfft. Leaning casually against the doorway, Shinsuke couldn't hold back a laugh. Nanami turned away, shoulders trembling as he fought to keep it in. Ugh! Forget it! Rico stamped her foot in frustration. We'll just wait until night and deal with it directly. She tried for once to be proactive and ended up humiliated. Damn curse. She'd make sure to shred it into pieces. Chapter 17, The Monkey Spirit? A terrifying legend. Let's try another house. Nanami Kento wasn't satisfied, so he knocked on another villager's door and asked about the strange events. Before long, he returned with some information. According to the villagers, they suspect wild beasts from the mountains come out at night to hunt. The sounds don't match any ordinary animal. Some even claim they saw something that looked human. But the witness isn't mentally stable anymore. That's all we've got. So it really could be a cursed spirit, but only moving at night, treating villagers as prey. Doesn't that sound a bit like? Amanai Riko's face paled, clearly recalling some unsettling rumor. My guess is still a curse, Nanami said cautiously. Probably not too strong, but we can't let our guard down. I don't want to lose another comrade because of misjudgment. Hey, old man, what do you think? Riko turned to Zen'in Shinsuke. Who are you calling old man? Call me teacher. Shinsuke shot her a sidelong glance, then turned his eyes toward the mountain looming behind the village. The settlement rested snugly against its base, like a tiny basin carved into the land. Whatever lurked in that mountain wasn't going to be small fry. Fine then, sensei. You're the team leader, aren't you going to share your thoughts? Riko pouted, hands on her hips. This teacher really didn't inspire much confidence. What's there to say? I don't have any cursed energy. Even if a powerful curse appears, I can't help you. Whatever happens, you'll have to handle it yourselves. No cursed energy? Impossible. Riko's eyes went wide. No cursed energy, and yet he could stop bullets barehanded? Did he think she was stupid? So it's true. Sensei really doesn't have cursed energy? Nanami murmured, a flash of realization crossing his face. That explained why he hadn't sensed anything from him. He'd assumed Shinsuke was so strong he could completely mask his aura. But in reality, there was nothing to sense. Exactly. So, flowery schoolgirl, and you, the gloomy salaryman in training, you're on your own. I'll only step in to keep you alive, not to finish the mission for you. Whatever. Riko waved it off. As long as you keep us from dying, that's good enough. At worst, she could fight the curse head-on. Even if she lost an arm or a leg, Shoko-senpai could patch her up. And so, the three of them waited until nightfall. The village grew eerily silent. Doors shut tight, lamps extinguished early. The moonlight bathed the dirt paths in silver, clear enough to see the roads at night. But the mountain beyond loomed like a wall of darkness. The trees swallowed the light, leaving only a suffocating blackness. The trio stood at the entrance to the forest. It's already past midnight. Why is there still no sign of it? Riko muttered. Hours of wandering, and not a single monster. Was this some clerical mistake at Jujutsu High? Maybe the villagers' stories were just another folktale to scare kids. Rustle, rustle. The stillness shattered. Something moved among the leaves, twigs snapping underfoot. Riko and Nanami instantly tensed, cursed energy flaring as they prepared for battle. From the darkness of the forest emerged a stooped figure, an old man, leaning on a cane. Riko blinked. Grandpa? What are you doing out here this late? She exhaled, relaxing slightly. Not a curse, just an elderly villager. But the man didn't answer. Instead, he smiled. Under the pale moonlight, they noticed the meat caught between his yellowed, jagged teeth. Riko! Careful, he's a curse. Nanami's warning came sharp and fast. He sensed the malevolent energy boiling inside the old man. His bandaged short blade flashed into his hand as he dashed forward. Grah! The old man lunged first, face splitting grotesquely as fur sprouted across his skin. His jaw widened, revealing beast-like fangs dripping with hunger. He pounced straight at Riko. Her pupils shrank. Hard hammering, she hastily cloaked herself in cursed energy. Shhhhk. The creature's jaws snapped shut on empty air. A claw lashed out instead, raking across Amani Riko's bare arm and leaving bloody red welts. Before the curse, still wearing its human mask, could pounce again, Nanami was already at its side. His bandaged short blade gleamed as cursed energy surged along the edge. 70-30 ratio, strike. With a clean slash, he sent the curse flying. Ryup! Grara! Blood sprayed. A deep gash split across the monster's chest. It crashed to the ground, wailing in agony. At last, they saw its true form, not a man at all, but a grotesque monkey. Or more precisely, a mandrill. Zen'in Shinsuke narrowed his eyes. Red nose, long pale face, yes, it was unmistakably a mandrill spirit. He hadn't expected to find something like this here of all places. This is the man-eating curse? Riko muttered, ignoring the sting of her wound. She bent closer, scrutinizing its exposed form. It's weak. What, a grade 3 at best. If I hadn't let my guard down, I'd have crushed it already. But the dying mandrill let out a long, eerie howl as its body dissolved into cursed energy. Gra! Grara! Gra! The entire mountain answered back. A chorus of howls rose from the darkness, chilling Riko and Nanami to the bone. They hadn't slain a lone curse. They had stumbled into a nest. If they get out, the villagers are finished. Nanami's grip tightened on his blade, jaw set. So many curses, and yet they had sensed nothing until now. The fact the village had survived this long was nothing short of a miracle. What they didn't know was that the villagers' stories to scare children had been whispered for generations, feeding fear upon fear. That negative energy had condensed into the swarm of curses. Don't tell me there's a grade 1 in there, Riko muttered, her expression darkening as the cursed energy waves grew stronger from the mountain. Then she straightened, forcing a smirk. Guess it's time for a genius sorcerer like me to shine. Her body flared with cursed energy as she dashed straight into the forest. She understood, if these curses weren't destroyed, if even a few slipped out, the result would be catastrophe. Nanami followed immediately, no hesitation. They'd already stirred the hornet's nest, now there was no choice but to fight. Sensei! Stay sharp, he called back, before both students vanished into the shadows of the trees. Curses, huh? Zen'in Shinsuke muttered, strolling in after them at his own pace. Funny. I've been in this world so long, and I still haven't killed one myself. His mind flicked back to his childhood, thrown into the Zen'in clan's cursed storage room by that long-dead man. Other than that, he had rarely crossed paths with strong spirits. But tonight, the mountain itself reeked of them. Chapter 18, The Quasi-Special Grade Vengeful Spirit. Stepping deeper into the mountains, the sound of fierce battle echoed ahead. Nanami and Riko were locked in combat with more than a dozen Yamazaru, monkey-like curses. Perched on the surrounding trees, at least 100 more clapped their hands and howled, their shrill cries reverberating through the forest. Individually, these curses weren't strong. Most were no more than 4th or 3rd grade. Only a few managed to reach 2nd grade. At the level Nanami and Riko displayed, they could probably handle enemies of this caliber. Filthy monkeys! Try my technique on for size. Instead of clashing directly with the curses, Riko kept dodging nimbly, channeling cursed energy into her palm. She compressed it. Then compressed it again. And again. Her body bent like a bow as she suddenly released the condensed sphere of energy, hurling it at the nearest cluster of curses. Boom! The orb detonated like a bomb the instant it struck, the blast reducing 2 4th-grade curses and a 3rd-grade curse to nothing but ash. Heh! A proud grin spread across Riko's face. This was her awakened technique, compressed cursed energy, what she called Star's Limit. As long as she wasn't interrupted, she could keep compressing endlessly, right up until her body could no longer endure the strain. In other words, so long as her body held out, she could unleash a strike rivaling the destructive power of a nuclear weapon. With that potential, she was destined for at least grade 1. And if she could reinforce her physical durability, even breaking into special grade wouldn't be impossible. After all, if you can create mushroom clouds, influencing the fate of nations is child's play. No wonder the star plasma vessel couldn't awaken techniques naturally, it would be far too monstrous. From his vantage point, Zen'in Shinsuke, who had been watching from afar, twitched at the sight of the girl casually lobbing cursed energy bombs. A blossoming maiden, walking down the path of destruction and explosions. Let's just hope she surpasses the predecessors of that artistic road. Roar! From the depths of the mountains came a terrifying howl, drenched in cursed energy. The overwhelming pressure made Nanami and Riko's heart seize. This level of cursed energy, it was undoubtedly grade 1. Maybe even higher. Again, this kind of situation? Nanami gripped his short blade tighter, eyes sharpened with resolve. He would never let tragedy unfold before him again. But just as the two braced themselves for the incoming curse, none appeared. Instead, the Yamazaru scattered, retreating deeper into the mountains. As though receiving an order. Rumble! Deep in the mountains. The mountains trembled. Two powerful currents of cursed energy clashed violently in the distance. Sensing this, Zen'in Shinsuke's eyes lit up with interest. With a flicker, his figure vanished from where he stood. Nanami and Riko exchanged glances. What do we do? In a situation like this, the logical choice was to report back to Jujutsu High and send in higher-level sorcerers to handle it. But their supervising instructor had already darted straight toward the battlefield, leaving them momentarily at a loss. Let's go take a look. That uncle's not weak. If he can't win, he should at least be able to get us out alive. Riko's analysis was calm and composed. Truth be told, she didn't really know Shinsuke's exact strength. But from what she'd heard, especially Gojo's remarks about Shinsuke's younger brother, she doubted the elder brother would be any weaker. If nothing else, she was certain of one thing: if the fight turned sour, Zen'in Shinsuke could definitely whisk them away. His speed was basically indistinguishable from teleportation. Nanami didn't argue. Together, they pushed deeper into the forest. Within minutes, they arrived at the heart of the battlefield. Zen'in Shinsuke stood at the edge, arms folded, watching the clash with an amused gleam in his eyes. In the clearing, a towering 3-meter-tall Yamazaru covered in long white fur bared its fangs in a grotesque snarl. Opposite it stood a man, one whose presence made both Riko and Nanami stiffen. Geto. Clad in dark monk's robes, it was none other than Geto Suguru, the sorcerer branded a curse user by Jujutsu High, sentenced to death. Well, if it isn't little Riko and Nanami, Geto said lightly, his expression unreadable. He had already sensed two sorcerers battling outside the forest, but hadn't expected them to be familiar faces. HM? You're here too? Noticing Shinsuke standing nearby, Geto actually looked surprised. If Nanami and Riko hadn't shown up, he might never have realized Shinsuke was even there. The man was like a transparent shadow, just standing off to the side, silently spectating. Geto! Why did you do it? Tell me you were framed, right? Riko's voice rang sharp as she glared at him. She had never been able to accept the news. Even with both Gojo and Yuri Shoko telling her it was true, she refused to believe it without seeing it for herself. How could anyone change so completely, so quickly? Sorry, Riko. This is all of my own choosing. Geto's tone was casual, almost serene. He turned to Shinsuke. Thanks to what you said to me last time, I've thought through a lot. I've made up my mind to live doing what I truly want. Huh? Shinsuke blinked, caught off guard. Oi, don't go pinning this on me. Your choices are your own, nothing to do with me. No way was he carrying that blame. If anyone deserved it, it was Yuki Tsukumo. Uncle! What's going on? Are you saying Geto becoming a curse user is your fault? Riko's wide eyes bore into Shinsuke, who looked utterly exasperated. It's not because of him, Geto cut in. He just helped me sort out my thoughts. Why wallow in doubt and despair, when he could act? To him now, the path was clear. To exterminate all non-sorcerers. And the quasi-special grade Yamazaru before him was the perfect weapon. A monster born from generations of folktales, a horror whispered from parent to child. That legacy of fear had nearly elevated it to a true special grade. That was why it had ordered its minions to devour villagers, to stoke fear, to accelerate its evolution. But in doing so, it had attracted the attention of Jujutsu High, and of Geto himself. To him, taming this king of Yamazaru, along with its hundreds of underlings, was a prize worth taking. Roar! The white-furred giant let out a thunderous howl, summoning its horde. Hundreds of Yamazaru surged forward, swarming toward Geto. To the beast, only this man posed a true threat. The two sorcerers nearby carried too little cursed energy to pressure it. And that other strange onlooker with no cursed energy at all? As insignificant as roadside gravel, utterly beneath notice. TCH, quasi, special grade or not, your only choice is to submit. Geto's eyes glinted with absolute confidence. In general, sorcerers ranked above curses of the same grade. A grade 1 sorcerer could exorcise a grade 1 curse. A special grade sorcerer could deal with specials. And this? This was merely a quasi-special grade. Intelligence or not, to Geto Suguru, it was prey, nothing more. Chapter 19, The Yamazaru King Falls, a new function for the Golden Finger? The forest, shrouded in pitch black, erupted with radiant bursts of cursed energy. The air split open with a jagged tear. Two massive claws gripped the rift's edges, and from within emerged a monstrous, snarling head. Roar! The sheer pressure of its cursed energy vaporized the swarm of lesser curses that had rushed forward. Another quasi-special grade curse. To subdue a quasi-special grade like the Yamazaru King, Geto Suguru had no intention of wasting a true special grade curse. That would have been overkill. The moment the curse he released appeared, it lashed out, claws flashing toward the white-furred Yamazaru King. The beast's eyes glimmered with a disturbingly human-like fury. Roar! Its roar surged out, smothering everything within a dozen meters in cursed energy. Seeing this, Zen'in Shinsuke calmly seized Riko and Nanami by their collars and leapt back, retreating from the shockwave. A black sphere materialized around Geto and the Yamazaru King, swallowing them whole. A domain expansion. Riko's face went pale. That a curse could expand a domain meant it was far beyond what they could ever hope to handle. Nanami's expression hardened. This was insane. Sending him, a quasi-grade 1, and Riko, a grade 2, against something like this? What were the higher-ups thinking? Unless, they already knew the situation, and that's why they assigned them a supervising instructor. It's probably just an incomplete version, Shinsuke remarked. He set the two down, eyes fixed on the sphere. This was a domain? He couldn't sense anything happening inside, completely sealed off. But from the feel of it, it was only a fledgling domain, rough and unstable. The Yamazaru King really was unlucky, caught at the final step of evolution by a sorcerer with cursed spirit manipulation. And that technique, its ceiling was absurdly high. If Geto weren't so reckless, if he had just focused on surviving and stockpiling power, he could have become the strongest sorcerer alive. Think about it, cursed womb, death paintings, the four disasters, even Sukuna. As long as he grew strong enough, Geto could theoretically command them all. Even Tengen's ultimate evolution leaned toward becoming a cursed spirit. With just a bit more patience, he could have absorbed nearly every curse in existence, everything except perhaps Sukuna, whose abnormality defied reason. Shinsuke's thoughts were interrupted as cracks spidered across the surface of the domain. Boom! In the next instant, it shattered apart. The Yamazaru King staggered out, blood spilling from its maw, eyes blazing with rage. For a quasi-special grade, you really were strong, Geto said with a smile, arms spread wide. At his side now stood another spirit, a plump-faced curse with flowing hair, hands hidden inside wide sleeves, its narrowed, beady eyes radiating a strange humor. A special grade, the imaginary vengeful spirit, Tamamonome. A curse with a domain of its own, perfect fuel for his growing arsenal. Ruer! The Yamazara king glared at him with burning resentment. It had only wanted to hide in these mountains, slowly evolving into a true special grade. Why was it being denied that fate? Snarling, it turned and bolted, not toward freedom, but straight for Shinsuke, Nanami, and Riko. It wasn't stupid. It knew escape was unlikely. Its only chance was to use the three of them as leverage. If they were close to Geto, threatening their lives might buy it time. The 3-meter-tall beast dropped to all fours and charged like a juggernaut. Nanami's face froze, his knuckles whitening around his short blade. But then his eyes flicked sideways. Riko had already darted behind their supervising instructor, using Shinsuke as a human shield. Quietly, Nanami sheathed his weapon and took a step back. He knew his limits. Right now, he was nowhere near strong enough to take on that cursed spirit. Better to let Master Zen'in get them out of here. At that thing's speed, there's no way it could catch up anyway. Am I being treated like an easy target? Zen'in Shinsuke smirked as he watched the Yamazaru lunging toward him. His right hand slowly unclipped the crimson 3-section staff hanging at his waist. He had only intended to watch the fight, but this monkey was starting to get full of itself. Just like certain sorcerers, it seemed to think anyone without cursed energy was worthless. The monkey's razor claws gleamed as it thrust for Shinsuke's throat, intent on tearing him apart in one strike. In its eyes, this human wasn't even worth taking hostage, no cursed energy, no value. But in that split second, its gaze flickered. The man before it showed no fear. Instead, his arms spread wide, as if welcoming the claws. He was smiling. That twisted grin sparked a primal dread in the cursed spirit's chest. Wait! Don't kill it! From a distance, Geto Sugiru's voice rang out, panicked. He'd just found a decent cursed spirit. If this guy destroyed it, all his effort would be wasted. Crack! A brutal sound split the air. The Yamazara king's eyes grew vacant. In its mind, scenes flashed, the moment it had first become a cursed spirit, no more than a weak 4th grade. It remembered bounding joyfully through the mountains. But it was lonely. Seeking company, it ventured to a village at the mountain's foot, hoping to find humans who could see it and play. Instead, people screamed in terror. Rumors spread, twisting into monstrous tales. The fear strengthened it. Others like it began to appear. Confused at first, it slowly grew to hate humans. It hadn't done anything, yet they painted it as evil. With its newfound strength, it began retaliating against the villagers, sending its kin to devour a few humans every couple of years. If they feared it so much, then fine. It would make sure they never escaped that fear. HRR. Clarity returned to its gaze. Its body was fading away. So, it was already dead. Its final glance fell on the man who killed it. That man's eyes were calm, indifferent, neither joyous nor sorrowful, as if he'd merely swatted a bug. That one, he's the true monster to fear. Gulp. That thing, it's dead? Riko peeked out from behind cover, her eyes wide at the sight of the Yamazara king's ruined body disintegrating. She swallowed hard. This old man was terrifying. Shinsuke casually shook the blood off Playful Cloud, his special-grade cursed tool worth 500 million yen, and shrugged. Well, what else was I supposed to do? It was already in his face. Should he just stand there and let it choke him to death? That'd be way too embarrassing. Hey! You bastard! Geto's expression twisted with frustration. His prize had been stolen right in front of him. Wasn't this going too far? He'd been grateful a moment ago, and now this? Oh, my bad, Geto boy, Shinsuke said with a sheepish grin. Forgot you could absorb this thing. Didn't think it'd pop like a balloon. Then his face froze. The scripture inside his body suddenly trembled. Without warning, a powerful suction drew the energy from the Yamazara king's dissipating body straight into the scripture. A surge of scorching heat coursed through his veins, flowing into the fifth gate of the 8 gates, the gate of closing. His entire body surged with newfound strength. The scripture's display shifted. Gate of closing 1%, gate of closing 4%. Shinsuke's cheek twitched violently. Seriously? You had this kind of function and didn't bother telling me sooner? Chapter 20, Mission complete, red packet secured. The sudden new function left Zen'in Shinsuke completely stunned. Killing cursed spirits can speed up my cultivation? Then what the hell were all those years of bitter training for? So all that hard work was just him being a sucker? One quasi-special grade curse equaled weeks of sweat and blood. If he'd known earlier, why waste time training? Just go curse hunting, this world was never short on monsters anyway. Looks like it's time to adjust my plans. The scripture's hidden ability was unexpected, but finding out now wasn't too late. He'd originally thought to wait until Megumi entered Jujutsu High before occasionally dropping by as a part-time instructor. But now? Looked like he'd need to keep closer ties with the school, gather information on strong cursed spirits, and farm them to boost his progress. A single apology won't cut it. Geto Sugiru's sudden voice snapped Shinsuke out of his thoughts. Lifting his gaze, Shinsuke's eyes gleamed. Wait a second. This kid's walking around with a whole collection of cursed spirits, isn't he? Should he? His stare shifted, tinged with a hint of hunger. Geto suddenly felt a chill crawl down his spine. What was that look? Why did it feel like prey being sized up? Must be his imagination. You're a non-sorcerer too, aren't you? Geto narrowed his eyes, studying Shinsuke. For the sake of his ideals, he intended to eradicate every non-sorcerer alive, even his own parents weren't an exception. And this man in front of him? A non-sorcerer as well. Of course. Not just a non-sorcerer, I'm a non-sorcerer without even a drop of cursed energy. Geto boy, I'm one of the very targets you want to wipe out. So, how about it? Want to kill me right here? Shinsuke's grin stretched wide, his expression oddly exhilarated. He looked at Geto as if he were a delicious cake on a silver platter. Surely this guy had some high-grade curses tucked away. If Shinsuke killed him, would those spirits go berserk? Then he could really test this new cheat's mechanics. Geto! You're not seriously thinking of attacking us, are you? Riko shouted, stepping forward. She truly didn't want her friend to stray further down this twisted path. At her words, the dangerous glint in Geto's eyes dimmed. His playful, carefree mask slipped back on. Relax, it's a joke. How could I attack you guys? I just hate those monkey-like non-sorcerers, that's all. With a dismissive wave, Geto turned and walked away. He didn't pick a fight with Shinsuke. Yes, the man was a non-sorcerer, but clearly not an ordinary one. More importantly, Shinsuke didn't threaten his plan, and Geto wasn't entirely confident he could win against him either. Geto! Riko called after him as his figure disappeared into the darkness. But it was useless, his mind was already set on a lonely path. What a shame. Shinsuke yawned, bored now. His gaze fell on the dozens of low-grade curses still lingering, unsure what to do. With one casual motion, he swung Playful Cloud. The staff tore the air apart with a deafening sonic boom, the shockwave obliterating the ground before him. Every cursed spirit, 2nd through 4th grade, was pulverized into dust in an instant. Not even time to feel pain. Yet, this time, the scripture inside him remained silent. As if such weaklings weren't even worth noticing. So it only works on higher grades, huh? He muttered under his breath. He'd assumed all curses counted, but apparently, only semi-special grade or above qualified. That meant viable targets weren't many, he'd still need to keep up training. Gulp! Uncle, wasn't that a bit much? Riko's eyes softened as she looked at the countless spirits wiped out in a blink. She almost pitied them. Nanami, meanwhile, stood frozen in awe at Shinsuke's overwhelming power. No wonder this man was their instructor, his strength more than justified it. Shinsuke shot Riko a sidelong glance. What, would you rather I let you take them home as pets? That wasn't what she meant. She just thought keeping a few alive might give them more practice. This uncle, always pretending not to care, but his actions said otherwise. Once the mission wrapped up, Shinsuke headed home, leaving the formalities of reporting to Riko and Nanami. Not long after, his account received a hefty transfer. A fat paycheck, a new function unlocked, and his progress boosted. This trip was anything but wasted. Seems Jujutsu High isn't completely useless after all. Time slipped by, the sweltering summer fading away. On the streets, people now shuffled about in heavy winter coats. In the courtyard, Zen'in Shinsuke kept up his daily training, his body practically turning into a steam engine. Amid the heavy snowfall, he stood bare-chested, muscles flexing with explosive power. His entire frame radiated heat like a blazing furnace, steam curling off him as though he were some immortal ascending through mist. It's so warm standing next to cousin. Zen'in Mai, bundled in a thick winter coat and scarf, her little face red from the cold, looked like a round, puffy dumpling. She pressed herself close to Shinsuke, happily soaking in the waves of heat rolling off him, better than any heater. In contrast, Maki, wearing only thin loose clothes, swung her staff tirelessly in the snow, sweat steaming off her body. Watching Mai's blissful expression, Shinsuke couldn't help but reach down and pinch her flushed cheek hard. He sighed inwardly. These twin sisters really were two extremes. One timid, one fearless. One lazy to the bone, the other daring enough to challenge fate. Still, even the timid one was starting to show some courage now. Ow, ow, cousin, that hurts. Mai puffed out her cheeks, glaring up at him, tears welling in her big round eyes like pearls about to tumble out. Shinsuke ignored her sulking. Instead, he walked into the house, fetched 2 red envelopes, and crouched down to hand one over. Here. One for each of you sisters. Tomorrow don't come here, I've got something to take care of. His breath came out as white mist in the frosty air. It was New Year again. No matter how much he resisted his clan's ways, some things were carved into his bones. Preparing red packets for children was tradition. It wasn't much money, but the gesture was what mattered. Wow! Red packets. Cousin, you're the best. Mai instantly abandoned her tears, snatching the envelope with a honey-sweet smile. Mua. She pecked his cheek with a quick kiss before dashing off toward Maki, who was still training. Look, sis. Cousin gave us red packets. This girl. Shinsuke shook his head, a helpless smile tugging at his lips. She was growing more unruly by the day. Maki paused mid-swing, glanced at her sister's beaming face, then at the red packet now in her hand. She turned to Shinsuke, bowing slightly. Thank you, master. I've told you already, you're not qualified to be my disciple yet. Shinsuke let out another sigh. Mai, at least, acted like a normal girl, spoiled, clingy, but endearing. Maki, though, she was stubborn as a mule. Once she set her mind to something, nothing could sway her. Sooner or later, I will be. Maki muttered under her breath, clutching the red packet tightly before resuming her drills. Shinsuke could only shake his head. He was more tolerant with cute kids than he'd admit. But if it were some bratty nuisance pestering him every day, he'd have turned them into a human spinning top long ago. Chapter 21, A Special Grade Sorcerer Without Cursed Energy? Knock, knock, knock. Click. The door opened slightly, and a small head poked out. Uncle's here! Fushiguro Tsumiki's face lit up with delight as she quickly pulled the door open. Happy New Year, Tsumiki. Zen'in Shinsuke handed her a red envelope. Thank you, Uncle. Happy New Year to you too. Tsumiki bowed politely. Hello, Uncle. Standing just behind her, Fushiguro Megumi clasped his hands together and called out as well. His expression was calm, but his eyes revealed a quiet anticipation. You want one too, huh? Here, kid. Shinsuke smirked as he handed over another red envelope. Who did this brat think he was fooling, trying to act all aloof at his age? Thank you, uncle. Megumi's eyes flickered with excitement as he quickly accepted the gift. Inside, Toji had already tied on an apron and was cooking in the kitchen, perfectly settled into the role of a stay-at-home dad. What about me? Where's my red envelope? Toji stuck his head out from the kitchen, rare mischief in his tone. You're grown. Shouldn't you be the one giving me a red envelope instead? Shinsuke shot him a look. As the elder, it was only natural for him to give red envelopes to the kids. But Toji? He was long past that age. If anything, he ought to be giving his older brother one. No red envelope for you. But I did bring cake. Shinsuke lifted the box in his hand. TCH. I'm not a kid. Toji froze for a second when he saw the cake, then quickly ducked his head back into the kitchen, pretending indifference while stirring the pan. Wow, cake. Does that mean it's someone's birthday today? Tsumaki and Megumi's eyes sparkled, mouths already watering as they stared at the dessert. That's right. Can you guess whose birthday it is? Shinsuke placed the cake on the table, looking amused. It's not my birthday, and Megumi's was last week. Uncle's birthday is in summer, so that means it's Dad's birthday. Tsumaki figured it out almost instantly. Megumi tilted his head thoughtfully. So Dad's birthday is right next to New Year's. Last time, Toji had taken the kids to Shinsuke's place to celebrate his birthday. This time, the older brother came to theirs, bringing both New Year's cheer and a birthday celebration for Toji. That night, the four of them welcomed the new year together. Tsumaki and Megumi leaned against the window, watching the colorful fireworks explode across the night sky. So, how's life now? Better than before, right? Shinsuke glanced at Toji. What are you talking about? I used to be free as the wind. Toji refused to admit it. But compared to a year ago, the reckless, devil-may-care aura around him had faded noticeably. Perhaps this was the power of raising kids. You, on the other hand, almost 30, and still no girlfriend. Toji smirked, throwing the jab without mercy. He already had 2 kids, yet his older brother didn't even have a partner. Didn't that seem backwards? Sure enough, Shinsuke's lips twitched at the remark. Against his will, the image of Yuki Tsukumo flashed across his mind. Shinsuke quickly shook his head. Why did that woman suddenly come to mind? When you bring back Tsumaki's mother, then you can say that to me. So what if they were both bachelors? Just because Toji had kids, did that make him superior? At that, Toji fell silent. Ding dong. A message chimed on Shinsuke's phone. He glanced down, it was from Yuki Tsukumo. A selfie. Next to her stood a snowman that bore an uncanny resemblance to someone he knew. Yuki Tsukumo, Happy New Year. Cute. Zen'in Shinsuke, nice snowman. Don't build one like that again. Yuki Tsukumo, what do you mean? Doesn't it look just like you? Smirk. Zen'in Shinsuke, do I look that ugly to you? Angry. Time passed, and the new year arrived. Shinsuke's days fell back into their steady rhythm, daily training, punctuated by the occasional mission from Jujutsu High whenever a first-grade or stronger cursed spirit appeared. Each mission was both an opportunity to earn merit and to strengthen himself. After repeated experiments, he finally confirmed the conditions for the scripture's absorption and conversion. It only worked on cursed spirits he killed with his own hands. And only those of first grade or higher. The years slipped by. Gojo Satoru and Yuri Shoko graduated from Jujutsu High, immediately transitioning into teaching positions. Smooth, flawless timing. Soon after, Nanami Kento and Amanai Riko graduated as well. Nanami chose not to continue as a sorcerer, instead stepping into the corporate grind of everyday society. Riko, however, remained at Jujutsu High as a sorcerer, often dropping by Shinsuke's place to freeload meals. After all, Shinsuke occasionally took them out on missions. Over time, he'd at least become acquainted with most of Tokyo Jujutsu High's students. "Yo, old man, still training? I'm here to mooch dinner again." A familiar voice rang out as Amini Riko appeared in the yard. She had shed her girlish innocence. Long hair brushed her shoulders, a yellow coat draped casually over her frame, and she was blowing bubbles with chewing gum. She had transitioned from bright-eyed student to feisty, streetwise young woman. To Shinsuke, she really did look like a rebellious teen now. If she added a tattoo and dyed her hair, the image would be complete. "Riko ne. You're eating at my brother's place again." Aside from Shinsuke, who was in the middle of his workout, the Zen'in yard also had its regular visitors, Maki and Mai. The sisters came every single day, punctual as clockwork. No one in the Zen'in household dared to stop them. They had grown from little Lolas to slightly taller Lolas. Other than height, not much had changed. "Can't help it. I'm the only one left at Jujutsu High. Gojo's always on missions, Shokone is busy, and there's no one else to keep me company. I'd die of boredom if I didn't come find you guys." Riko said it as if it were the most natural thing in the world. After all these years, she hadn't built many friendships. Nanami had become a corporate drone, Kurwa was gone, which left only this eccentric, homebody uncle and the two little sisters. Even Maki and Mai call me brother. "Why are you the only one who insists on calling me old man? Do I really look that old to you?" Shinsuke had been annoyed by that nickname for years. "Come on. You're 30. If I don't call you uncle, what should I call you? You expect me to call you what these two little brats do? Onii-chan." "Ew!" Even Riko shivered at her own imitation, goosebumps prickling her arms. "All right. On second thought, uncle wasn't so bad. At least it wasn't nauseating. What's the big deal? Brother is brother. What's weird about that?" Mai tilted her head, genuinely puzzled why Riko refused to call him that. "Anyway, old man, I heard some news. Because of your performance these past few years, the higher-ups have officially labeled you as a special grade 1 sorcerer without cursed energy." She grinned smugly. "Congrats, you're a sorcerer now. And a special one at that." It was true, over the years, Shinsuke had led countless missions. Though the strongest cursed spirit he'd fought was only quasi-special grade, his consistent results had convinced the higher-ups to rank him on par with a first-grade sorcerer. Shinsuke, however, couldn't care less. Special this, special that, none of it mattered. Money, that was what was real. Chapter 22, Tsumaki in a coma, seeking Tenjin. "Hey, uncle, what do you think is the meaning of life?" At the dinner table, Amini seemed absent-minded, suddenly dropping a philosophical question out of nowhere. Maki and Mai were busy stuffing their faces, completely focused on eating. Zen'in Shinsuke froze for a moment, giving her a strange look. What triggered this? Don't tell me, you're about to go dark side too? What the hell, I was just asking. Amini propped up her chin, rolling her eyes at him. It was just that after everything she had gone through lately, and with too much free time on her hands, her thoughts had started drifting toward heavier questions like this. That's a deep question. You'll have to figure it out yourself. He had no time to play therapist for someone who was just bored. Come on, uncle, you live so disciplined every day, you must have figured out the meaning of life by now, right? Amini studied Shinsuke with curious eyes, trying to understand how he could live so relaxed every day. Ever since becoming a sorcerer, most of her time had been spent exorcising curses. Only then did she start to understand why Sugurageto had gone down the path of a curse user. She wasn't about to destroy non-sorcerers like him, but, deep inside, she was tired. Being a student and being a sorcerer were worlds apart. She missed the days when she was just a student. I don't know about the meaning of life. All I know is, eat well, drink well, play well. Shinsuke leaned back in his chair, completely at ease. Meaning? Who cared? Do what you want, that was enough. And if there were things you wanted to do but couldn't? That only meant you weren't strong enough yet. Ugh, uncle, that's way too shallow. Ammonite pulled a face. With his strength, how could his goal be that small, that easy to reach? What, do you want me to turn into that brat Suguru and stress over world peace all day? Hey, uncle, don't drag Geto into this like that. Ammonite reacted as if he'd stepped on her tail. No way she'd ever go as far as Suguru, that was way too extreme. Just eat already. Even with all this food, your mouth still won't stop. Exactly. Ammonite Wenshin talks too much. Cousin said no talking during meals. Mai chimed in, nodding along. Humph. Little Mai, did you just scold your big sister? You looking for a beating? Blah, I'm not scared of you. Watching the two of them squabble like this, Shinsuke felt a vein pop. Yep, things really were getting noisier around here. Re-eyeing. Just then, Shinsuke's phone went off. He glanced at the screen. Toji was calling. What is it? Tsumiki's in trouble. Shinsuke's brow furrowed, his eyes hardening. Even under Toji's watch, someone had managed to get to her? You guys eat. I need to step out. When you're done, just leave the dishes. Don't go into the kitchen. With that, Shinsuke got up and left. The others didn't think much of it. It didn't take him long to arrive at Toji's home. What happened? Shinsuke's gaze fell on Tsumiki, lying unconscious on the bed, unresponsive. Toji's face was grim. It started not long after she came home from school. The hospital says all her vitals are normal. I checked the school too. The teachers said nothing unusual happened there. Clearly, Toji had already eliminated every obvious possibility. With no leads left, he'd turned to Shinsuke. Dad, Uncle. Tsumiki's gonna be okay, right? Megumi looked at his sister, eyes filled with worry. Don't worry. She'll be fine. Shinsuke reassured him, then turned to Toji. You had sorcerers look at her? Toji nodded. He had. I'm guessing she's caught in some kind of technique. Don't panic. I'll ask around. Of course, Shinsuke already knew the truth. Tsumiki had been marked by Kenjaku as a vessel. But whether that was a cursed technique or some other kind of mark, he couldn't be sure. Nor did he know exactly what method had been used. What he did know was this, at least for now, her body wouldn't be taken over. Leaving Toji's place, Shinsuke headed toward Jujutsu High. If anyone in this world understood Kenjaku better than him, it was someone at Jujutsu High. What a poor girl. Quick, call the police. As Shinsuke was lost in thought, wondering where Kenjaku might be, a commotion broke out up ahead. A crowd had gathered, looked like there had been a car accident. Yuta! 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 Through a gap in the crowd, Zen'in Shinsuke spotted a girl's corpse sprawled on the ground. Her tragic death had already birthed a vengeful spirit in just a matter of seconds. In front of it stood a dazed little boy, frozen in shock, looking about the same age as Maki and Mai. Shinsuke instinctively reached for his waist, only to realize he hadn't brought Playful Cloud with him today. TCH, fine. Since you two are still in the pure love stage, I'll let this one slide. His first instinct, upon seeing Rika manifest as a special grade curse, was to cut her down on the spot. But after a moment's thought, there was no need. The world would spawn plenty of curses in the future, one more or less didn't matter. Besides, this particular special grade wasn't an easy one to deal with. No point in causing a massive scene in the middle of a crowded city just to grab a bit of extra power. Ignoring the incident entirely, Shinsuke continued toward Jujutsu High. Unnoticed by anyone, he slipped through the barriers of the tombs of the Star Corridor like a phantom, moving deep into its hidden sanctum. Before him, countless doors floated suspended in the air. He began to still his mind, preparing to sense Tengen's presence. But the very next second, he abandoned the idea and simply shouted, "Hey, old hag! You're not even gonna come greet your guest?" Probing through each door one by one would take forever, better to just call her out. "Old hag? My, such disrespect. Don't young people know any manners these days?" The doors swayed. One of them creaked open, and from within came a voice, neither male nor female, tinged with faint irritation. "What an impolite brat, just like that troublemaker Yuki Tsukumo." Passing through the door, Shinsuke finally laid eyes on Tenjin, sitting cross-legged on a cushion, a low tea table before her. Her face was inhuman, already showing signs of the evolution she had begun. "So this is the legendary Tengen-sama, huh? Not exactly what I pictured." Tenjin cast him a sideways glance. "No cursed energy. You must be one of the two oddballs from the Zen'in clan." She'd heard whispers from the higher-ups about the peculiar brothers of the Zen'in family. "What business do you have with me?" Unhurried, she poured tea, her demeanor calm. She had no fear that he might mean her harm. "My niece has been marked by Kenjaku. Tell me what can be done. Can you remove the mark and return her to normal?" Shinsuke didn't bother with pleasantries, not with this 1,000-year-old hag. Chapter 23, Gojo Satoru wants a spar. Kenjaku? At that name, Tengen's eyes flickered with surprise. She looked up at the rude young man before her. "You know of Kenjaku? That's not a name one stumbles across by chance. How did you learn of his existence?" Setting down her teapot, her expression grew solemn. "Maybe I just did my homework thoroughly," Zen'in Shinsuke shrugged, then casually grabbed the teapot himself and poured a cup of tea. "Doesn't matter how I know. What matters is, you fix my niece first." He tapped his knuckles against the table to remind her. Tenjin shook her head. "If it's Kenjaku's doing, then there's nothing I can do. You'd need to seek him out directly. Perhaps he's the only one who can undo it. But, heed my warning, that man harbors ambitions vast and terrifying. He's extremely dangerous. Be cautious." Shinsuke sipped the tea, eyes narrowing. "So, where is he? If he could find Kenjaku, he wouldn't have come here in the first place. By this time, Itadori's mother should already have disappeared without a trace. Otherwise, tracking Kenjaku would have been far simpler." "You think I'm omniscient?" Tenjin snapped. "How should I know where he is?" Kenjaku had lived for over 1,000 years, her eternal adversary, sometimes a man, sometimes a woman. If she could locate him so easily, their war would have ended long ago. "So this trip was a waste of time, huh?" Shinsuke muttered. He had assumed that after centuries of clashing, Tenjin would know Kenjaku's whereabouts like the back of her hand. Clearly, expecting a shut-in old hag to be useful had been foolish. "Not entirely wasted, you did at least drink tea brewed by me," Tenjin said smoothly. Few who had tasted her tea could still boast of being alive. "Oh, then I should feel honored," Shinsuke smirked. His gaze sharpened. "Tell me, what are you now? Human? Curse?" Tengen's form was already far removed from humanity. If she counted as a curse, she'd surely be at special grade. "You can think of me as half-human, half-curse. In a few years, I'll become a curse entirely. When that time comes, if you still haven't found Kenjaku, you can come back to me." "He will." Her implication was clear. Once her transformation was complete, Kenjaku would come for her, because his 1,000-year plan required her powers. Shinsuke snorted. "So you want me as your free bodyguard? Dream on. I'm out." Without another word, he got up and left, helping himself to the unopened packet of tea leaves on the table as he went. The tea of an ancient fossil who'd lived a millennium wasn't half bad. Tenjin said nothing, but her stiff face twitched. That brat, he knows too much. They had never met before, yet he acted as though they were old acquaintances, and he knew things he shouldn't. If not for prior reports from the Jujutsu higher-ups, she might have suspected he was as ancient as she was. Leaving the tombs of the Star Corridor, Shinsuke crossed paths with Gojo Satoru, returning from an exorcism. By now, Gojo was already acknowledged as the strongest modern sorcerer. His eyes bound in white cloth, Gojo still radiated effortless dominance. Shinsuke chuckled. What kind of curse needs the strongest sorcerer himself to deal with? Oh? You here for a mission too? Gojo tilted his head. Though blindfolded, his perception was crystal clear. His gaze fell on Shinsuke emerging from the school's inner sanctum, a half-open bag of tea in hand. I don't take anything below grade 1. Just came to visit an old fossil. Shinsuke waved him off casually. You're a weird one, Gojo remarked dryly. Though both were instructors at Jujutsu High, they'd never been close, but technically, Shinsuke had become a teacher first, making him Gojo's senior. By the way, Gojo's tone shifted as he unwrapped the blindfold, revealing eyes that gleamed like stars. Amani once said Geto became a curse user because of you. That true? He had recently picked up traces of Geto's Suguru during a mission, which reminded him of Amani's offhand comment from years back. And now, here was the man himself. You really think that's possible? Shinsuke sighed. Some grudges never died. You're right, Gojo conceded after a pause. Geto isn't the type to have his ideals flipped by just a few words. In Gojo Satoru's eyes, Suguru Geto had always been someone who protected the weak. Ironically, it was Gojo himself who never cared much for them. And yet, now their personalities had completely reversed. Come to think of it, Gojo said, his gaze locking onto Zen'in Shinsuke's eyes, we've both been teaching at Jujutsu High, but we've never actually sparred, have we? How about a little match? The glint in his eyes made it clear this wasn't just a casual suggestion, he had a purpose. He'd long been curious about Shinsuke's true strength. Surely, this man was far stronger than the one who had once tried to assassinate Amani Riko. That calm, unshaken gaze of his, it carried too much weight to be ordinary. Gojo brat, are you joking with me? Shinsuke looked at him in disbelief. The strongest sorcerer of the modern age, challenging a guy who doesn't even use cursed techniques? You running a fever? For a moment, he even wondered if the higher-ups had sent Gojo to test him, but knowing Gojo's personality, that seemed impossible. Don't say things like ordinary guy. Someone might take offense, Gojo said lightly, forming a sword-finger stance in front of him. His eyes shimmered with light. It's just a friendly spar between teachers. No need to be so uptight. In truth, there were very few people left who could stir his fighting spirit. Here I come. Gojo's warning came a split second before his entire figure vanished, reappearing behind Shinsuke. His hand formed a gun-like shape, and at his fingertip a crimson glow condensed, a repulsive force brimming with destructive power. What a ridiculous kid. Gojo's eyes narrowed sharply, but the figure before him was already gone. From behind came a low growl. Boom! A massive fist smashed into Gojo's head, launching him across the ground. The sheer force split the earth beneath them as if an earthquake had struck. Still holding the bag of tea leaves in one hand, Shinsuke glanced at his fist. Barehanded, huh? How the hell am I supposed to fight like this? Didn't even bring a weapon. Your strength, your speed, far beyond that guy's, Gojo said as he walked back unscathed. Shinsuke's strike had slammed into his infinity, leaving him unharmed, but Gojo was astonished by the man's raw physicality. Since becoming the strongest sorcerer, all of Gojo's abilities, speed, offense, defense, had skyrocketed. He could even teleport across long distances, yet Shinsuke's speed had still caught him off guard. What a shame. Gojo sighed, a trace of melancholy in his voice. If only you had cursed energy. Then maybe I wouldn't feel so alone in this era. You really are an impolite junior, Shinsuke muttered, shaking his head. He'd just been called rude by Tenjin, and now Gojo had made him feel the same way. Next time he saw that old hag, maybe he'd give her a little more face. Chapter 24, Traces of a Special Grade Curse. Ha ha ha, sorry, I just couldn't hold it in. Next time, once you've got a cursed tool in hand, we'll have a proper spar. Gojo Satoru laughed it off, completely unconcerned with his own rude behavior. Let's just hope you live to see that day. Zen'in Shinsuke brushed past him without another word. Was it true that he couldn't fight without a weapon? Of course not. Until now, he hadn't revealed the power of his chi and blood. That vital energy, the raw embodiment of masculine force, surely couldn't be weaker than cursed energy, which was born from negativity. If it were just a cursed spirit, he wouldn't hesitate to act. But his opponent was Gojo Satoru. With Gojo's limitless defense, and without either domain amplification or the inverted spear of heaven, any fight between them would be unwinnable and utterly pointless. As Shinsuke walked away, Gojo's grin slowly faded into a more serious expression. That guy, even without cursed energy, his strength is already at the level of a special grade. A man who had reached special grade purely through physical prowess, it was absurd, yet undeniable. When Shinsuke returned home, Maki was already training in the yard while Amani lounged on the sofa watching TV. From the kitchen came the clatter of dishes. "Ah, Uncle, you're back?" Seeing everyone making themselves so at home, Shinsuke felt a vein pop on his forehead. "These brats. Got it handled?" Amani asked casually. Shinsuke gave a faint nod. For now, with no sign of Kenjaku, all he could do was reassure Toji and Megumi not to worry too much. Kenjaku would reveal himself eventually, and there was no way he'd allow Tsumaki to be permanently possessed. Clatter! Another loud crash echoed from the kitchen. A bad premonition stirred in Shinsuke's gut. "Where's Mai?" In the kitchen, Amani said without even looking up. She insisted on helping with the dishes. No matter what I said, she wouldn't stop. The next instant, Shinsuke appeared in the kitchen, only to see the near-empty cupboard and Mai standing proudly on a stool, her small hands covered in soapy bubbles, foam dotting her cheeks as she washed dishes with enthusiasm. "Look, Oni-chan, I'm amazing. I helped you wash the dishes," she announced, beaming with pride. Without a word, Shinsuke stepped forward, rinsed the soap off her hands and face, then lifted her onto his lap, face down. "Huh? Oni-chan, what are you doing?" Mai turned her big eyes up at him in confusion. Was this some new game? Smack! The sound of a sharp slap rang out. Mai's eyes widened. This game was definitely not fun. "Ah! Oni-chan, why are you hitting me?" Smack! "How many times have I told you not to go into the kitchen? You think my words are just background noise?" Smack! "Ah! Stop, stop! I get it. I was wrong." Smack! "Wha? Nei-chan, save me. Amani, help!" Smack! After giving Mai a thorough lesson, Shinsuke finally set her down and began cleaning up the disaster of a kitchen. From the time he left until now, nearly half a day had passed, yet Mai had been washing the dishes the whole time. She'd even taken clean bowls from the cupboard to scrub again. If not for the shards of broken porcelain littering the floor, he might almost have praised her. "I told you not to go in the kitchen. See what happened now?" Amani glanced at Mai, who was pouting, eyes wet with tears, rubbing her sore bottom, and mercilessly mocked her. "Humph." Mai huffed, cheeks puffed up in frustration. Mai ignored Amani, puffing her cheeks and sulking to herself. She had no intention of talking to the woman who hadn't lifted a finger to help her. After cleaning up the wreckage in the kitchen, Zen'in Shinsuke emerged with a dark expression. His eyes locked onto Mai. "If you dare step into the kitchen again, don't even think about eating here." "No. Anything but that. Mama's cooking is awful. I only want to eat the food you make, Oni-chan. I swear, I promise, there won't be a next time." Though Mai brushed Amani off, she showed not the slightest trace of resentment toward her brother, even after the spanking. Instead, she raised her hand in earnest, pledging never to repeat the mistake. Hearing this, Shinsuke's expression finally softened. Still, he couldn't help but offer a silent prayer for Mai's mother. Her cooking must really be that bad if even her own daughter's complaining about it. Perhaps it was just that his dishes carried more of the flavors from his previous life, hearty, rich, comforting meals that perfectly suited Mai's taste. Pfft, ah! Ammonai laughed openly at Mai's expense, without a shred of guilt. If I stay here any longer, I'm going to die laughing. I should go, got a mission tomorrow anyway. With that, Ammonai left. Once she was gone, Mai shuffled over with her head lowered, tugging at Shinsuke's sleeve with both hands, swaying side to side. Oni-chan, Mai knows she was wrong. Please forgive me, okay? Mai loves you the most. So young, and already so good at acting spoiled. Shinsuke gave her a displeased look. This is the last time. Yay! Oni-chan is the best. Her face instantly lit up, the sting of her punishment already forgotten. After years of living together day in and day out, Mai had already figured out her brother's temperament. He looked fierce on the outside, but in truth, he wasn't scary at all. Quietly, she had moved his place in her heart forward, closer and closer, almost surpassing even her sisters. Shinsuke cast her a helpless glance. So it's true, women who know how to act spoiled always have it easiest. And I guess that applies to little girls, too. People are just hardwired to forgive anything cute. It's not about being a lowly, it's just the nature of cuteness itself. His gaze shifted toward the yard, where Maki was training, sweat dripping as she pushed herself to the limit. A small smile tugged at his lips. Now this disciple, she's the one I'm truly satisfied with. Not yet, but soon, I'll teach her real skills once her body reaches the threshold. With that thought, Shinsuke stepped outside to train a bit before preparing dinner. As his consciousness sank into his mindscape, the mental scripture within him glowed with 5 illuminated pages, signifying that he had unlocked the 5th gate. At this stage, he could clearly feel how steep the path forward was becoming. Physical training alone was beginning to yield little effect. A whole year of grueling practice might not compare to the power gained from slaying just a handful of cursed spirits. By his estimate, the 6th gate was already the absolute limit for someone without chakra. Reaching even a trace of chi and blood power with his current body was already extremely difficult. Beyond that, training would be useless. Fortunately, he had his golden finger. As long as there were cursed spirits to consume, his growth would never halt. After a casual round of exercise, Shinsuke whipped up a simple meal to satisfy the sisters. A few days later, a message arrived from Jujutsu High, summoning all available teachers to a meeting. The topic, a special grade cursed spirit that had attacked Ammonai, one not listed in any records. Shinsuke's eyes lit up with interest. A special grade, huh? Let's see what kind of surprise you can give me. Chapter 25, How to Seize Control Over a Cursed Spirit's Fate. When Zen'in Shinsuke arrived at Tokyo Jujutsu High, most of the faculty had already gathered. Even several instructors from Kyoto Jujutsu High had made the trip. So lively? All this for just one special grade? Shinsuke took his seat, a little surprised. Special grade spirits were indeed dangerous, but did they really need this kind of mobilization? It's not just the cursed spirit, Gojo Satoru said, his expression uncharacteristically serious. This matter involves a group of curse users. Normally, Gojo wouldn't spare a second thought for a cursed spirit. But since this involved his best friend, Geto Suguru, his attitude had hardened. Deep down, he still held on to the hope of bringing Geto back. As long as Geto was willing, Gojo believed he could handle the opposition from the higher-ups alone. At that moment, Yeri Shoko entered, pushing a wheelchair. Sitting in it, wrapped head to toe in bandages, was Ammonai Riko. Sorry to trouble you all, Riko greeted the room of sorcerers politely. Uncle? You're here too? Spotting Shinsuke, her face turned red. Just days ago she had been freeloading meals at his place, and now here she was, bundled up like a rice dumpling. It was humiliating. Tisk, TSK. Riko, you've still got a lot of training to do. It's only been a few days. Shinsuke shook his head at her pitiful state. Still, for a spirit to injure a grade 1 sorcerer like Rico so badly, it clearly wasn't a run-of-the-mill special grade. Ahem. Rico, why don't you tell us exactly what happened? Yaga Mazamichi coughed twice, steering the meeting back on track. Rico glanced around the room, then began. This happened in Shibuya. I ran into a curse user, Geto Suguru. By the time I arrived, he was already fighting a special grade spirit. She recounted her mission. It had started as a routine exorcism. After cleansing the curse, she sensed an immense wave of cursed energy nearby. Thinking it was another spirit, she went to investigate, intending to deal with it as well. Instead, she stumbled upon Geto in battle with a cursed spirit. The fight dragged on, and even he couldn't quickly subdue it. That alone told her the spirit's power was at least special grade. Since she was already there, she decided to strike from the shadows, waiting for her chance to land a decisive blow. After all, the last thing she wanted was for Geto to absorb the spirit and use it to further his twisted ideals. But before she could finish charging her technique, both Geto and the cursed spirit noticed her. The spirit immediately switched targets and mauled her. If not for Geto's interference, she would have been dead on the spot. To injure Rico this badly, this isn't just any special grade, one teacher muttered. Did Geto manage to absorb it? Another asked. Rico shook her head. No, it escaped. According to Geto, it's not an ordinary special grade. Its strength is constantly growing. He admitted that soon, even he might not be able to defeat it. He's very fixated on this spirit. It's almost certain he'll make another move. The room fell silent. Everyone knew Geto's capabilities. If even he couldn't subdue the spirit, not entirely because of Rico's interference, that spoke volumes about its power. Constantly growing stronger? Shinsuke narrowed his eyes. Could it be a natural-born prodigy among spirits, like Toji among sorcerers? If so, a cursed spirit of that caliber could yield him a tremendous amount of blood and vitality. The real problem, Yaga said gravely, is that we don't know the spirit's location. Nor do we know when or where Geto will confront it again. If it appears in a crowded district, the chaos and casualties would be catastrophic. This was why so many instructors had been summoned. Geto didn't care if non-sorcerers lived or died, and cursed spirits even less so. For now, it's most likely still in Shibuya. Your assignment is to split into teams and sweep the district. If you find it, don't engage immediately, report first. He laid out the plan simply: locate the spirit, then concentrate firepower to eliminate it as quickly as possible, minimizing collateral damage. Because Geto was involved, there was also a high chance they'd have to contend with his allies. Hence, every available teacher had been called in. I'll head out first. You all can catch up. Gojo stood, clapped his hands, and warped himself to Shibuya in an instant. He was itching to see Geto again. Rude brat. Doesn't even say goodbye to his seniors, Shinsuke muttered, rising at a slower pace. For short distances, he might be faster than Gojo, but when it came to long-range teleportation, Gojo had the advantage. Shinsuke decided he'd just take a car over. I'll partner with Mei Mei. Iori Yudahime hurried to Mei Mei's side, clutching her arm. The only one left was Kyusuke Butsuya. He glanced at Yaga, ready to speak, but Yaga cut him off. This time, I won't be participating. Huh. Ah. Shinsuke-sensei. Wait for me. With no other choice, Kyusuke hurried after Zen'in Shinsuke. The truth was, they'd barely interacted before. The guy looked sharp, handsome even, but also gave off a vibe that he wasn't exactly easy to get along with. Still, overthinking wouldn't help. Kyusuke quickened his pace. Even if Shinsuke wasn't the easiest person, spending more time together would smooth things out eventually. Meanwhile, Yaga had already dispatched a number of Grade 2 sorcerers to Shibuya, assigning them to support the main teams. Shinsuke-sensei, wait up. Kyusuke finally caught up, slightly out of breath. HM? Kyuzukabe-sensei, did you need something? Shinsuke looked at him, puzzled. He vaguely remembered this guy. Wasn't he often called the strongest grade 1? Didn't you hear Principal Yaga just now? Grade 1 sorcerers are to pair up. You and I are a team. Kyuzukabe emphasized the instruction from moments earlier. Oh, is that so? Nice to meet you, then. Shinsuke finally realized, smiling as he extended a hand. Just now, he'd been so preoccupied with scheming how to wrest control over the cursed spirit's fate from the others that he hadn't paid attention to Yaga's words. Being a special grade 1 himself, he counted as one of them anyway. And nice to meet you. Kyuzukabe blinked, startled by the casual friendliness, then quickly reached out to shake his hand. Let's get moving, shall we? Shinsuke said. Why yes, right. Time to head out, Kyuzukabe replied quickly. So, maybe Shinsuke-sensei wasn't as stern as his appearance suggested. Still, there was something about being around him that made Kyuzukabe just a little nervous. That's the end of this tale for now. Make sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see you the next installment. Peace.